Welcome back to the channel, everyone. Davey, Deathray here. How y'all doing on this lovely, lovely evening? It is December 17th. It is just after 7 p.m. out here in Arizona, where the time never changes, but we certainly do. And I hope you guys are having a lovely, lovely week so far. We are cruising right up to the holiday. The month is just flying by. I mean, what can you do? But yeah, we are here. This is, guys, it's kind of crazy. This is episode 77 of Late Night with the Davey. This is a different kind of late night, though. I'm actually going to call this one Lito Night with the Davey. Yeah, that's right. I'm busting out the dad jokes right the fuck away. Right away. Thank you guys so much for joining. Really quick, before I jump in and say what's up to everybody, I just want to remind y'all to hit that like button. It really does help these live streams. Subscribe if you haven't already. I mean, what are you waiting for? We got, all sorts of great guests, fun topics to talk about. I've been reading that Terrifier 3 novelization. That's been a lot of fun as well. So, and then I cover a bunch of horror news. So if you're new here, maybe this is your first time, maybe you're catching it on the replay, just want to let you know what we do here at the channel. And yeah, thank you so much to the Patreon members, the YouTube channel members, and our delicious group of Death Squad mods. So I'm going to jump on in and say what's up to everybody, and then we're going to bring my guy Lito Velasco up here, and we are going to have a really awesome A Nightmare on Elm Street chat. So let's go ahead and say what's up and get our guest in, shall we? We've got Chester Franklin Jr. What's happening, Chester? So good to see ya. We got Erica Stabs for Likes. What's happening, Erica? Thank you so much for being an amazing moderator here on the channel and over on the Discord as well. Let's see who else we got. We got King Matthew III. What's happening, bud? I am doing well. Thank you so much for stopping on in. Stephanie Hinkle is joining us. Thank you so much for being a channel member, Stephanie. Really appreciate you. We got Linda in the house as well, another channel member. How are you doing, Linda? Thank you for hanging out. Always a pleasure to have you join us. Miss Candy is hanging out. How are you doing, Candy? Miss Candy, maybe. I shouldn't be too informal, right? Not a fan of Freddy. Well, we're going to get into all of that. This is a good, no matter where you fall on the Freddy spectrum, on the A Nightmare on Elm Street spectrum, if you're a massive fan, if you're relatively lukewarm, which is kind of where I'm at, or if you're not a fan, I think this is going to be still a very fun stream for you. Lito and I are going to get into, I don't want to, bury the lead or anything, but bury the Lito. But we're going to get into his, personal passion and how close he feels to this franchise. We're going to also talk about how I feel about it a little bit as well. We're going to get into that discussion. So yeah, no matter where you fall on the Freddy meter, as it were, I think you're going to have fun with this one. Let's see here. We got Lito in the chat, one of our great channel members. He's trying to take the blame here. I know, you know what? No blame needed. I never go live on time, folks. I like seeing the chat build up. I like seeing you guys say what's up to each other and get settled in and all that kind of stuff. And, it wouldn't be a live stream if you weren't trying to put a little part of it together at the last minute. So that's just how we do. That's just how we do. Let's see who else we got in here hanging out. Holy cow, Erica has become a YouTube channel member. Hell yeah, Erica. I know you've been a channel member a couple times or maybe a few times here. I'm curious to know how long it's been, Eric. I'm sure you'll get like a membership chat that you can share at some point if you feel so inclined. Yeah, I don't know what it is. I think sometimes it would auto renew if you put payment in. Sometimes like if your card changes or whatever, or if maybe you were gifted one, Erica, or gifted a couple. So they just like, kind of rolled on out when they were finished. We got Tia Nina in the chat, another one of our great channel members. How are you doing, Tia? Thank you so much for being a member and hanging out with us here. We got Aaron Click in the house. What's happening, Aaron? Oh, and we got Ray. What's happening, Ray? How are you doing? One of our great channel members as well. Guys, Ray, Tia, Erica. I don't know if Trashbox Mandy is hanging out. God, I still feel bad for even saying that. Amanda Mendoza. Now I've just seen Trashbox Mandy so much that it's just too easy to say that. And then, others, Stephanie hanging out on the Discord, a whole bunch of you guys hanging out on the Discord. It's really fun. We watch movies there all the time. We have a total blast. And man, the ladies over there are absolutely hilarious. And if you want to see me get endlessly razzed by other people, the Discord is the place to be. We got Adrian James in the house. How are you doing, Adrian? So good to see ya. We've got Christine hanging out with us as well. Welcome on in, Christine. Thank you for kicking it with us. We got Brad Underwood in the chat. What's happening, Brad? Yeah, episode 77, the year that Star Wars was first released. That is absolutely correct. Yes, make sure you hit that like button, please. Make sure you do. Late night with the Davey pilots. Yeah, if you guys caught my latest 28 years later, the Bone Temple video, you'll know what Aaron is talking about. And that's a great way of letting me know you saw the video, Aaron. So I certainly do appreciate that. And yeah, had a lot of fun with that one. Let's see who else we've got in here before we really kick things into high gear. Emoji Matt hanging out, drops a $4.99 super chat. Thank you so much, Matt. Really appreciate you. And Matt says, let me see if I can do my best Freddy here. Welcome to prime time, bitch. How's that? I think that's okay. I think it's relatively derivative. I mean, that's just how it is when you do a Freddy imitation, right? There's only so much you can do there. I am no Robert Englund. That is factual in so many ways. What's happening, Zach? How are you doing? It's going well over here. I'm having a blast. Yeah, I'm used to it, Erica. I'm the fifth of 5 kids, so the way that we show affection in the Conway household, is by giving each other a tough time in a loving way, of course. Let's see here. Yeah, you should. Exactly. If seeing people get razzed by viewers and friends is your kind of thing, then the Discord is the place to be. I'm sure Erica would be more than happy to share that link here in the chat. Let's see who else we got. We got Prince, the Asian action assassin. How are you doing, Prince? FredHeads. Yes, Freddy. I was like, did I read that wrong? Because I know the actual terminology is FredHeads. I don't want to, use the wrong word to describe a massive group of people who, worship a dream demon. Freddy Heads assemble, doobie-doo. Prince showing the Scooby-Doo love here in the chat. Guys, I used to watch Scooby-Doo all the friggin' time. Holy cow. When I was a kid, man, a whole bunch of Scooby-Doo. I'm also the fifth of 5 kids, Davil. Yes, they call me Davil. I think it's like a Southern accent way of saying devil. So yeah, they call me the devil on Discord. Totally normal. We got Keelan from Kill the Credits dropping a $1.99 on his birthday. Keelan, it's your birthday. Happy birthday, Keelan. Keelan, it's your birthday. Happy birthday, Keelan. There you go, little Michael Jackson. This is my favorite part of Michael Jackson is the I do it. I want a keyboard. I used to do this when I did stand-up. I want a Michael Jackson keyboard, guys. And it's just a keyboard, and you just push it, and it's like woo! I do it. The way you make me. I do it. Oh, it would be fun. You could actually make one of those now. That's funny, because when I used to do that joke, that was, probably an impossibility. And here we are in the future when you can actually do that. What's happening, Jamie? We got our OG Death Squad mod, our mama mod, as we call her, Jamie Hart. Jamie, I hope you are feeling well. I hope you've got all those electrolytes and salts and you are ready to have a great holiday season. And I found out after digging through the, Sleepaway Camp Blu-ray that you sent me, I love the dual cover. I flipped it around to the original cover. I love that original cover with the knife through the shoe. It's just so classic, so iconic. So had to flip it on over. Thank you so very much for that, Jamie. Jamie's also a YouTube channel member, probably since they were first opened up. So thank you so much for being such a sweet pal, Jamie. And gosh, guys, Jamie's been here since I was at like maybe 350 subs, something like that. So Jamie's been in it for the long haul. She's seen quite a bit of change around here, I would imagine. I would love to get a Steam Deck. I see that. Where did that go? There we go. I would love to get a Steam Deck. Yes, it would be great. Keelan is just 26 years old, I believe. Is that right, Keelan? You're as old as Orson Welles was when Citizen Kane was. I don't know if it was when it was released or when they were filming it. That's a really interesting story. I bet Lito knows that story. That whole RKO thing. And gosh, Orson Welles was like, talk about always be grifting. Is that Tia that you usually say always be grifting? Dude, Orson Welles was like grifting the studio, but grifting sounds bad. He was being a bit of a shyster, but it was what had to be done to make the movie as awesome and as classic as it was. And Keelan says, hi everyone, and thank you for the happy birthdays. I'm too out of my mind to reply to everyone, but I wanted to say hi and thank you. Davey singing to me is my 2025 highlight. I hope you're having a great night. Tell Olivia that the whole Death Squad says hello, and I hope you have an awesome time hanging out, and enjoying your birthday. Let's see here. I think we're all caught up. That's great. Always be grifting. Yes, it's a real thing. Okay, so we said happy birthday to Keelan. I sang for him. I called the show Lito Night with the Davey. Aaron already referenced the Stone Temple Pilots, Bone Temple Pilots. God, I really, if I was worried that YouTube would like strike me if I tried to put in one of their songs, but I really wanted to put like just a bit of the chorus from Big Empty on my video, but combination of me being too lazy and not wanting to fuss over it. But I'm a huge Stone Temple Pilots fan, guys. Okay, so here we are. I'm gonna have a sip of water, and then we're gonna bring our illustrious guest on. Guys, Lito, you know what? I'm just going to let Lito tell you all what he's all about. He appeared on an episode of Late Night with the Davey Before Dark. So some of you have met Lito. Maybe you've seen him on another channel. He's been making the rounds lately. And speaking of Keelan, once again, Mr. Birthday Boy Keelan, killing the credits. He is going to be, so Lito is going to be on Keelan's channel on Friday. So if one of the mods could share the link to Keelan's channel, that would be great, and you guys can go over there and subscribe if you haven't already. And Lito is going to be over there on a Friday night, and they're going to be watching well, I'll let Lito tell you all about that, but you're not going to want to miss it. You're not going to want to miss that stream. Okay, I am so jealous. Tia, was Scott actually singing for the band at that time? That would be incredible. I know they've kind of cycled through a couple guys. I think they're still active now. The guy that's their singer now, because they had Chester from Linkin Park, but the guy that's singing for them now, at least as far as I can remember, is actually pretty good. Okay, here we go. Let's go ahead and bring our guy on. Lito, are you ready? Are you psyched? Are you pumped? I can see you in the backstage. Can you hear me? Okay, there we go. All right. Excellent, guys. Let's go ahead and bring our guy Lito on. Everybody, let's see some love in the chat. How about it? Yeah, here we go. I was making sure I wasn't missing anything else, but here he is, folks. Mr. Lito Velasco. How are you doing, Lito? You are muted, just so you know. Did I mute you? There you go. You muted you.
I always do it just to be safe in case, you never know.
No worries, man.
Thanks for watching. Thanks for tuning in.
Yeah, absolutely. Let me see if I can. I'm going to bump up your volume. Can you speak a little bit really quick there, Lito?
Sure. Is this better? Or?
Yeah. I just wanted to make sure you're a little bit. And what I can do as well, since there's two of us, let's just bring on that. Let's bring that background music just way in the background. Nice little bed of synthwave for us in the background. But thank you so much for joining me. This was something that we had planned to do, I think, sometime during spooky season. We ended up shuffling some things around, but this is great. I revisited the whole A Nightmare on Elm Street franchise in October. I've rewatched most of them within just the last few days. So I did like a crash course because I'm also putting together my franchise ranking. And I had all of these thoughts in my head when I watched them in October, and I was like, oh man, I'm finally ready to just like unload and like really give like the proper ranking here. And then of course 2 months later, I'm like, what did I think about that movie? So since a lot of people are seeing you just for the very, first time here, why don't you let people know a little bit about, what you do, how you fell in love with horror, your involvement in like the whole horror sphere, because you are a guy that wears a lot of hats and wears a lot of different costumes as well. So fill in the folks on a little bit of your history and how you came to fall in love with horror, and more specifically, your special connection with The Nightmare on Elm Street.
Okay, so first I want to be sure I say to Stephanie Hinkle, thank you for the compliment on the shirt. Appreciate that. So I guess I've always been a fan of horror for, excuse me, a lot of reasons. I grew up in the Chicagoland area, and there's a host there that everyone knows now because he's now nationwide, named Svengoolie. And every weekend he would show some sort of old-timey horror film and do his shtick, his comedy shtick. And because they were genuinely safe for families, because they were older films, we would always tune in from the time I remember being old enough to watch TV. And my dad was always a huge fan of horror movies. So he was always trying to push the envelope a little in terms of what we would watch. But my mom was always very much like, no, don't, because they'll have nightmares and this and that and the other. And, they both had a good argument, of course, but my dad was always like, your mom's at work tonight. Should we rent a scary movie? Or, so he would always push the envelope in terms of what we could see. My first love of modern horror, I think you've heard this story, is Halloween. We were being babysat one night the week that Halloween 2 was released in theaters. And this was the premiere of the NBC showing of the first film. So I'm really dating myself here. But my babysitter, my sister, I was like, do you want to watch this movie with me? You don't have to. You can go up to bed, but I'm going to watch this movie, and it's really scary. And we were like, okay, we'll watch it with you. We tried to be brave, and of course, that was a huge mistake. But so that got me hooked really on the feeling of being absolutely terrified. There was something about it, even though I was really, 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 really fucking scared of Michael Myers. And being in a suburb close to Chicago, of course, I was like, oh my God, we're going to die tonight because it's the week of Halloween. And he's out there in Chicagoland somewhere. Like, 'cause I wasn't old enough to understand fiction and, reality. So like when they showed the trailer for Halloween 2, all I knew was he's still alive. But I couldn't let go of the just kind of enamored, all-encompassing feeling that gave me. Not just the terror, but just something about, the rush of it and the glee that I got from it. So from that point on, I was pretty much just diehard horror guy. And my dad, of course, embraced it. He started renting a lot of scarier stuff for us. Some of the Friday the 13th films, Texas Chainsaw Massacre. And I don't know if you are part of this. You're part of this generation, I think, Dave. You're old enough to remember going to the video store when you were a kid and, browsing the aisles and seeing the covers, and just, there was something about that, seeing the images and just being transfixed by the art, just the art itself told you some sort of story. And of course, as kids, we made the story up in our minds, what it was. And maybe we were close, maybe we weren't. But I remember 2 covers really stood out to me a lot. The Funhouse, that cover terrified the crap out of me. And then A Nightmare on Elm Street. The Nightmare on Elm Street cover, there was something about it, just the way she was holding the covers and looking, it really resonated with me the night I saw Halloween. Because the night I saw Halloween, this was me with the covers, just holding them up and looking at the doorway and hoping that Michael wasn't going to come walking in. So I had to see this film. I had to. I was like, Dad, we've got to rent this movie. And I'd heard the name Wes Craven because I read a lot of Fangoria when I was a kid. My cousins read a lot of Fangoria. My friends read a lot. So I knew the name, but I hadn't seen any of his films to that point. So we rented A Nightmare on Elm Street, and literally, it just blew my face off. There was something about this sort of Fellini-esque way that he played with reality meets the dream world where you're not quite sure what's what. Another film that does that also really resonates with me is Phantasm. Those two films, there's something about the way that they just caught my imagination, because it was like, I don't know what's real and what's not, and it's so hard to tell, and the way that the line is blurred, it also just spoke to me. Because, you know, I adore the concept of a, you know, guy with a mask, because that's real, you know, but everybody dreams. And I think that's what really got me about A Nightmare on Elm Street, because I'd had so many pattern nightmares about Michael Myers after seeing Halloween the first time, that this idea of a pattern nightmare also really, you know, pun intended, sunk its claw into me. So that's what really kind of got me hooked on the franchise itself. And then, I mean, I guess just to try and sum up, what do? I'm an actor, I'm a producer, I'm a composer. There's a synthesizer right there that I use attached to my computer. I'm an impressionist, I'm a voiceover artist, I do cosplay, I do whatever I can that speaks to whatever urges I have inside me at any given era and any given moment in my life. And also, if somebody says, hey, can you do this? You never say no in Hollywood. You say, yeah, I can do that. And then you figure it out as you go. So I've developed a lot of skills just from just taking gigs, because they were paid gigs. And thank you to everyone that's complimenting this shirt. Thank you, seriously, everybody. I love this shirt. This and the first film, they go back and forth in terms of being my favorite in the series.
Very nice. Yes, we'll dive deep into all of that. And yeah, you know, like you were saying, A Nightmare on Elm Street and Phantasm, there's just something so surreal. I mean, that's really like what you know, it's a great word to describe the way that dreams are. You know, it's like there's something about them that's real, but there's also something that's really difficult to define about dreams. I was speaking with somebody earlier today, and it was just like that weird, like I can't sit there and tell you exactly what happened in a dream, but I can tell you the way I felt, and I can give you a couple images from the dream. So it's like, this kind of thing happened, this kind of thing happened, and this is how I felt. And so a lot of times nightmares, at least in my personal experience, it's more of a feeling than the thing might not actually be scary when you're awake, but for whatever reason, when you're asleep, you're like, well, that was off. Like something was weird there. And that is Phantasm. That is A Nightmare on Elm Street. And yeah, I mean, I remember having, like, we had a Betamax, like we were like late to the game on the VHS. And for everyone that's, you know, maybe a little bit too young to know, Beta was a better product and better quality, but it wasn't as popular. I believe the adult entertainment industry gravitated towards VHS. And then I think it was Sony that invented Beta, right? And they didn't really want to share the rights with everyone. So VHS became a bigger thing because it was more, it was just more readily available. So we would all, like, I remember going to the video store and my dad being like, well, we can't rent that movie because they don't have it on Beta. And I'm like, as a kid, I'm like, I have no idea what that means. But yes, I very much had that experience. Funhouse freaked the hell out of me. The big one that scared me was Dolls. And then I finally watched Dolls this like September with Mandy, and I was like, this is like the cutesiest, like I can't even believe it's a rated R movie, because it seems like a kid's movie almost. There's like a nice tale of morality and always keeping your imagination alive and never letting go of that, you know, that childish part that's like the innocent, beautiful part of being a child. So I was totally wrong about Dolls, but man, that cover freaked the hell out of me. Scared me way more than Chucky. I wanted to watch Chucky, but Dolls, I was like, that shit looks scary.
Keep that shit away from me.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I wanted a My Buddy doll because I liked Chucky so much when I was, this was like 1990. I was like 8 years old, something like that. So yeah, let's go, since you already had mentioned it about your, you know, being a composer, being an impressionist, being, you know, doing cosplay, not just for fun, but in a way that's become part of like your professional career. And then your involvement with the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise, as far as like being a contributor to these sort of like tributes and everything. Let's go ahead and share some of these pictures. that you showed me. And then I figure let's share those pictures. It's going to give people a way better idea of like, you know, really what you do beyond just us speaking about it. And then we can really dive into the franchise and get into the nitty gritty. How does that sound?
Works.
Cool. Awesome. And then guys, as far as what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to keep an eye on the chat. You know how it is when I have a guest, I've got to give them most of my attention. If you're saying something that's like really sticking out to me, I'll star it and we'll get to it at some point. If you really want to make sure that I don't miss something that you want to say, then you can send in a super chat. I have a little goal set up for like $2 super chats. If we reach at least 10 of those, I'll give you a bonus late night. But super chats are not required. They're just kind of a fun bonus thing we can do. But let's go ahead and check this out. Let's do this and do that. All right. And then what I'll do, Lito, is I'll just click through these pictures and I'll kind of just let you give us a background and give us the story for each picture. So this first one here, what do you got? Is this a Mormon church? I'm just joking.
So that's actually on the lot of Warner Brothers in 2017. That year they launched an event during October that was known as Horror Made Here, because their studio tour all year long is called Hollywood Made Here. And for years, my friend David Woodruff, who is son of Tom Woodruff, the famous makeup artist from, you know, Alien, Predator, Starship Troopers, all these different films. David and I are really good friends. We worked on a lot of stuff together. He's done most of the special effects makeup that my wife and I would do when we did cosplay. And David had been trying to pitch Warner Brothers on the idea of doing a Halloween event to compete with Universal Studios. So they launched it in 2017. They had an Elm Street house that was basically a school that had been turned into, like, you know, a nightmare school. There was bodies and lighting effects and fog and people screaming and actors being pulled into rooms, you know, by, you know, Freddy's that were wearing like Trick or Treat studio masks. Well, they needed somebody to be Freddy for the photo op area, because the photo ops were at the end of the house and the photo ops were pricey. They were like $35 each. And David basically said, well, we can't do somebody in a Trick or Treat Studios mask, because it's,
yeah,
with all due respect to their work, they do great stuff, but people are going to want to see Freddy. And he knows David Miller, and I know David Miller from working on the documentary. So we just went to David and said, hey, we're doing this thing at Warner Brothers. We would really love to get our hands on some of Robert's appliances from one of the films. And he was like, well, I don't have any good appliances from one because it was so long ago. I could remake them, but I don't have time. We didn't want 6 because to us that was like, you know, the like.
That is the Trick or Treat Studios version.
yeah. So, and we didn't want to do New Nightmare, even though I love it. It's just not as instantly recognizable to people. So yeah, we figured 5 is the one that's closest to the like mainstream Freddy that everybody knows. So he gave us those pieces, and literally every day David would, you know, he'd get there really early with me. The event started at like, I think 6:30 or 7. I'd get there at like 2 and sit in the chair for 3 hours, and he'd put the appliances on me, and, you know, I'd get my glove on. That's actually one of my gloves. That's a Part 4 glove that I own. And that church is actually the church from Monster Squad and a bunch of other films. It's on the Warner Brothers lot, but that was that was our makeup room, was inside that building. So that was right after we finished. David just wanted to get some shots in the light. And I was their Freddy. I would just wait in the room, and people would come through the house all scared, and then I would wait behind the closed door, and they would usually bring them in small groups. And as soon as they got close to the door, you know, it said exit. So they think, oh, we're safe. And I would throw it open and say something, or, you know, do something. And then, you know, how about a photo op, bitches? You know, and they'd all line up for photos. And so that was the gig. That was it. And it was really amazing. More amazing than anything was just to think, I can't believe I'm wearing the pieces that, you know, Robert didn't wear these actual pieces, but he wore these pieces in a film. And growing up, not just a massive fan of this franchise, but such a massive fan of Robert. I mean, like, he is the Boris Karloff of our generation. So to
Hmm.
be able to kind of follow in his footsteps, and not, I mean, no one could ever do justice to the character like he does. But to do it and to, put all of my years of nerddom, my decades of studying his walk and studying his posture and studying the things he
Yeah.
does with the glove, and like, it was just, again, pun intended, a dream come true.
Yeah, there's that. He always talks about that Bob Fosse kind of like the dancer aspect
The
of
sidewalk.
being
Yeah.
Freddy. Yeah, the
Yeah.
sidewalk, the asymmetrical poses and stuff
hmm
like that. There really is. I mean, that's
The
the great thing
hat.
about Robert. Yeah, Robert's like classic training is that he took it as so much more than just playing a monster. Like they're really, and I think that's one of the reasons why it's very difficult for people to see somebody else in that role. I mean, obviously he did like play him more consistently than anyone else has ever played one of the monsters in our modern era. But there is something about him that he took it. He is a nerd, and he brought all the nerd with him to
Yeah.
Freddy. And
Yeah.
I will say this, man. I mean, if you told me that was Robert in the makeup in this picture, I wouldn't say it's not. Like
Yeah.
it's very like it is very recognizable. I was gonna guess it was the makeup from 4. So I was close, but not quite there. What was I gotta like I'm trying to picture what this whole experience was. It must have been really cool to be out there scaring people, but I'm also like sitting in that chair having those appliances put on. What was that like? Because that must have been gnarly to be like, wow, I'm living like the behind the scenes Robert Englund experience, not even just the forefront kind of thing. What was that like?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and that was another part of it was I'll never forget. We did the documentary Never Sleep Again 8 years before this event. So part of my tasks on Never Sleep Again, part of my producer tasks were I was in charge of all the photographic, video, and transcription materials. So I had hard drives, which I still have copies of, full of photos and videos that no one aside from who provided it to us and the people on the crew has ever seen. I still have videos and pictures that are not released to the public that sometimes I pull it out and just put it in and I'm like, oh man, I can't believe I have this.
Yeah.
But the reason I'm saying this is because Robert said in his interview, I remember writing it down. He said, I always had such a hard on for the makeup as a kid. So getting to live that aspect of Freddy was amazing. And for me, it was the same way. I always had such a hard on for the idea of becoming something else entirely different from me, not just wearing a costume and playing, Watson on stage in a play, which I've done things like that, or
Sure.
being an Agatha Christie and having like a little tiny scar, something. It's still me. I've always been I've always wanted to just be somebody completely different when I act sometimes because it gives you the chance to really just cut loose and be
Yeah.
somebody entirely different from who I am. Like Freddy's an awful, awful, awful creature by all rights, and he delights in scaring the shit out of people. So the process was amazing because I got to sort of feel what Robert talked about in terms of the first time it starts to go on, you're like, oh man, I hope I don't fuck this up, and then you're kind of watching in the mirror and you're kind of looking at the stuff go on in the glue and the powder and the paint and the Bondo that they put to hide the seams. And then you're looking and you go, oh, I'm starting to look less like me. And then it really starts to look less like you. And then you really start to kind of, at least for me, and I know this happened to Robert, something changes. Something inside you starts to change and you start looking and playing and making faces and you're just doing
Yeah.
all these different things, experimenting with it and learning who this thing is. So I just loved it because of that, because I love the chance to act in roles that people are like, there's no way that was Lito, is it? Like the next year they had me play Mark Hamill's Joker from the Batman animated series, and I was in full prosthetics. And there were people who came in, like I'm friends with Christopher Young, the composer, and I recognized him as soon as he came into the room I was in. And I was like, oh, look at this. We have Hollywood royalty. Christopher Young, who's composed movies like Hellraiser and Spider-Man 3. And he's like looking and he's like, how the fuck does this guy know who the fuck I am? And he didn't know until hours later when my wife ran into him and she told him, "That's Lito." And he was like, "That's Lito." Like, he had just no idea. So being able to do that as an actor is a gift. And I think that's one of the reasons why Robert and this role were almost symbiotic. They fed each other. They fed off of each other. They informed each other. And I think because of his training, because of the training that I've also had, which is not as in-depth as his, but it's also partly classically trained, it gives you the chance to use everything you got and bring everything that you can and give it to a role that really, like I said, it's a delight.
Yeah, and I think the cool thing about that too, you know, what you're describing, being able to, you know, see yourself transform physically and then, you know, falling into the character, it's like it gives you license to be somebody that's not you. So that's a really like liberating experience to play in that world. You're not being a fake, you're not being a fraud, but you are playing pretend, but it gives you this full license to be like, I don't even look like me, so I don't have to act. None of this has to be any little bit of me. It can be, I can just do whatever this character would normally do, and I am free of blame, which is like probably one of the biggest fantasies that most people have, is to act however you want and nobody to be able to say shit about it.
Yeah, well, and on that note, real quick, I'll try and keep this as brief as I can. The second year when I was Joker, this has nothing to do with Freddy, but I'm a huge Cubs fan, as you know, people might know. And since I was doing this gig in LA, it was the Dodgers versus the Red Sox in the World Series. And the Red Sox pasted the Dodgers that year, I remember. I think it was 4-2. But because I was Joker and I disliked the Dodgers already, I was able to let all of that out onto every single Dodgers fan that came into my courtroom. You know, like, "Oh, your team's taking it on the chin. Oh, too bad, Dodgers." You know, like, and what are they going to do? Like, they're not going to try and beat up the Joker. So yeah, there's a lot of freedom. I would never do that in real life because, I mean, come on. Hey, Eli.
Yeah, it's got to be a lot of fun. And I want to show off a couple of these other pictures, getting a lot of love for Never Sleep Again here in the chat. Jamie says, "I love it. I've watched it so many times." Tia's watched watched Never Sleep Again on Tubi as well. Let's show a couple more pictures here. We got let's see here. There we go. Here's you. Is this you're posing with something that you created in middle school? Is that what I'm looking at here?
Yeah, so that was another thing that was so rewarding about every experience I've had with this franchise. I drew that picture middle school, and it was part of an art contest. They were like, you need to draw a picture and you need to complete the picture within the span of 5 hours, because we had 1 hour of art every day at school. And so the contest was, you know, first, second, third place. Well, that's what I created in the span of the 5 days. And I won a prize, but I won third prize. And I came to find out later that the reason that I won third prize was because of the subject matter, because the principal and the teachers and everyone were so disturbed by what I had drawn that they're like, well, we can't give it first prize because what sort of message are we sending? So I had that art framed.
How dare we base it on merit?
I know, right? Right. So eventually I had that signed by Robert. I think my hand is covering the signature, and I had it framed because it really meant a lot to me that finally that meant something in a town to people and to, you know, my peers, where they're like, holy shit, dude. So that's just, again, it's just a kind of great memory from my youth, even though it wasn't so great at the time.
Yeah,
hey, Pat, hey, Brett.
I had a funny, kind of a similar, I mean, not very similar, but when I was in third grade, I love Little Shop of Horrors. It's like my favorite musical of all time. Yeah, I like musicals. Leave me alone, everybody. As long as they're good, and especially with Little Shop, it's a bunch of soul music, and I love soul music, so I'm gonna get down with that. And I drew Audrey too. We had an assignment in my third grade class. I was living in the Annapolis, Maryland area, and I drew Audrey too as the assignment. And my teacher was like, "You're getting a 0. I'm not accepting it," because the assignment was to draw a planet, and I drew Audrey too. And it was this whole thing where she called my parents and she was all like concerned about me, all this stuff.
So you
funny.
totally get it. You get it.
Yeah, it's, you know, people, and it's, you know, I think a lot of people in the chat can probably relate with this too. Like when you tell people you like horror, some people look at you like, is everything okay? And it's like, well, yeah, I mean, everything, maybe not everything's okay, but like the fact that I like horror doesn't mean that I'm any more weird or dangerous than anyone else out there. So it is pretty funny.
Yeah, and in the era that we were young, they really treated us like heathen misfits, social outcasts, budding criminals if you had any sort of penchant for horror. And I was the guy that wore black horror themed t-shirts almost every day of the week, you know, aside from Spider-Man and Indiana Jones and the Cubs here and there, but it was mostly Freddy and, you know, Jason and that sort of thing. So like they basically thought I was just, you know, going to be the biggest criminal ever. So it's like anything having to do with Nightmare on Elm Street. At the end of the semester, when I was in metal shop, if we finished our projects early and they got graded and we had time left over in the semester, you could spend that time making whatever you wanted. So I spent the last 3 weeks of that semester making a glove. I didn't put blades on it, but I had the back plate and 3 fingers done, and I was working on the 4th finger, and the teacher found out. He looked at and he's like, "Oh, you making an armored suit like a you know, Grail Knight?" And one of the bitch ass kids near me said, "No, it's a Freddy glove." And he was like, "You mean that guy with the knife fingers and from the movie?" And the kid was like, "Yeah." And he was like, "Oh no!" He picked it up and he threw it in the fucking iron smelter, like just destroyed weeks worth of. I was like that close to finishing, and I was just like, but that's the attitude all these educators had.
Sure. Yep. No, it was, you know, I liked punk rock and horror movies. So it was, even though I was an A+ student, I was still looked at as like a potential problem. So it's just one of those things. Now, okay. So I wanted to say, well, first off, I wanted to say what's up. You said hi to Pat. Pat is one of our great channel members. Thanks for joining us, Pat. And Pat's got an awesome channel. You were just on there the other day. Do you want to talk a little bit about what you were there doing and what you're going to be doing on Keelan's channel here on the 19th, here on Friday night?
Sure. So I starred in a horror slasher film, a holiday themed horror slasher film called All Through the House. I played the killer. I won't say villain, but I'll say killer. And so every year this movie comes back around. This is the 10th anniversary of the release of the film. And so every year this movie comes back around and people do watch-alongs, or they want to, you know, do interviews with us. And I was doing a watch-along on Pat's channel on Tuesday, Wednesday, someday. I can't even remember. My illness has messed my head up. But then on Friday, I'm going to be doing a watch along with Keelan on his channel. And it's going to be his first time watching the movie. So I'm very interested to see how that's going to work, because there are a few plot heavy points in the film that I'm going to be like, okay, we need to stop talking because you need to pay attention to this dialogue. So
yes, it can be difficult to do a first time watch, with an audience and everything. But it can be done. It was last Tuesday. You know, it's funny because I would have said it was like earlier this week or something too, because that's just how it is. When you do stuff every day, or you're in this content creation world or whatever, it can just like time flies by. It's totally crazy. And Tia's saying she hasn't seen that movie before. If people want to watch it, if they want to watch along with you guys, it is available on Tubi. Is that correct?
It's available on Tubi for free, I'm pretty sure. It might also be available on places like Crackle and some of the Freedy or whatever it is. I know it's available on Amazon Prime, Apple, and all
Perfect.
that. And it's not expensive to rent it. I think it's like $2.99. But also, I don't know if anybody's ever said this on your channel, but there's a website called justwatch.com that I always recommend to people. If they want to find out where something is, go to justwatch.com. I've got it bookmarked. It saves you so much time. I love it.
Because it tells you where it's available to pay to rent, or if it's available for free. I always like to tell people as well, if you download the Brave browser onto your computer, you can go to sites like Tubi and it'll skip through the commercials. It'll pause for like half a second and just go right past the commercial. So you don't have to worry about, you know, if you're watching along and you're not able to pay to rent the film. If you can find it on Tubi, watch it with the Brave browser. It gets rid of all the ads. So there you go.
I didn't know.
Okay, cool. I want to show off a couple more of these pictures because we've got some cutesy ones from when you were a little bit younger, and then we've got a few more of older Lito that I want to show off. Tell me, this is your 14th birthday. Is that what this cake is from? That's what the picture is called. So tell me a little bit about the birthday cake here.
So this is a cake. Every year my mom would make cakes for our birthdays instead of, you know, wanting to buy one, because we grew up not with a lot of money. So anyway, they could save money, they did. And my mom also happens to be an incredible baker. She can even make the beautiful, like, little flowers and everything. So she made a birthday cake for me, and she said, "What do you want me to put on the cake?" And I said, "Well, I'd like to decorate it with you if that's cool." And she's like, "Oh yeah, of course." She said, "What do you want?" And I kind of like looked at her and kind of like, you know, she's like, "Oh, of course, Freddy." She's like, "All right, I'll do some of it, and then you can, you know, do the rest." So I'm pretty sure she did the outline of the head and the shoulder and neck, and then I did the glove, and then she like colored everything in, and then I did the face, like kind of like details. So because again, I grew up in the height of Freddy mania. Like, I mean, like, that's something I want to touch on when we talk later about how just absolutely all-encompassing this was. If you weren't alive during it, it's very hard for you to understand what it was like. But we'll definitely get into that as we go. So everything was Freddy, and all my friends that were attending were all FredHeads like me, and Jason fans, and, you know, Phantasm, Halloween, Night of the Living Dead, Return of the Living Dead. Like, we just like consumed all of this stuff as much as we could. So I figured, why not consume it in the form of a cake?
And then to go right with it, this is another picture from your 14th birthday. This is so. Now I'm guessing this is what, 1988 or something. I don't want to age you, but I'm just trying to guess at what time Freddy would have been really in full swing. I think 87, 88 was probably the height of his mass popularity, right? And this is a pretty good looking mask for that time.
So this is 1988. This is May 1988, and that is the Dawn Post Studios Freddy mask that they released. And I had already found the hat at Goodwill or something like that, because the hat they gave you was foam, and it was super cheap. But you can't see it behind me because it's blurred out, but they re-released that mask. Trick or Treat Studios re-released an exact copy of that mask that my wife, bless her heart, bought for me last Christmas, because it was my first Christmas without my father, who is seen in this picture. And my dad bought me that mask, much to my mom's chagrin, but he did it as a reward for my getting really good grades on my report card, because he just knew how much the character meant to me. And that was the weird dichotomy of my father. We weren't always close, but he understood things like that so well. Like, I know how much this means to him. I don't care what she says. He's not a budding criminal. I'm buying this for him. So that's me just trying to be intimidating at a whopping 4'2" tall.
And now you've got like a makeshift kind of glove on there. How did you make these claws? Because this, you know, it's tough to tell what that's made of. Is that cardboard and tape? What do we got?
So that is the plate. It was made out of part of a shoebox, and then I colored it with a copper and gold crayon. And then the finger stalls are toilet paper rolls that I cut into the shape of the actual fingers on the glove. And then I bound them together using those, you know, those, sometimes you have a manila envelope with those two gold things that like hold it shut. Because those have a rivet kind of thing on the backside, I use those to hold the finger joints together. And then the blades are actually popsicle sticks that I cut in the shape, and then I colored silver.
Very nice. Very creative. I dig it.
Thank you.
Yeah. Parents out there, you got to nurture what your kids love. You might not understand it. You might not agree with it all the time, but you'll be happy that you did, and so will they if you nurture their interests there. So that's really sweet moment there.
Yeah.
Let's go ahead and jump on over to, we got another shot of you in a Freddy outfit. This says, what does this
That's
say? Born to Play.
Yeah, that's from the same event. That's the same makeup.
Gotcha.
I just sent 2 photos because I wasn't sure, and that's actually my part 3 glove. Just to nerd out on everybody because I know that much.
They are all different. They are all different.
Yeah.
I had no idea how much difference there was until, I don't know if you watch Chris Stanley's channel. Are you a fan of Chris Stanley? He's a big time Fred head, and he's got multiple gloves, and I think he's had other people put together some gloves for him. I know he does a lot of his own work as well, and I think most recently he even got like some of the knives, the original knives that they used. They're not fashioned or shaped or anything like that, but it is wild to see how intricate each one of, like, a real fan can look, especially when they put out this new artwork for this stuff. They're like, why are they using the part 4 glove as like the main, like, why is that the hero glove for the whole box set? Like, why isn't it the first one? And most of, you know, even other horror fans that aren't as attuned to that are like,
yeah, exactly.
Like,
well, the mainstream
I probably wouldn't be able to tell you. Yeah, I can tell you the Freddy's Dead glove. I can tell that one. Like, there, you know, I can see the obviously like bad or whatever out of the bunch, but yeah, I can't tell as much of a difference. So this is that same event. I see you've got your glasses on. You're looking very happy. Yeah, that's great. You had mentioned here, you know, you were talking about New Nightmare and that little bit of a different look, because it is ultimately a different, it's like, you know, it's the entity presenting itself in a little bit of a different way. And here's this adorable picture of you with a you know, cardboard standee. Where did you get this standee?
So again, going back to video store days, when I was a kid, what I used to do is when we would go into the video store, if I saw a poster on the wall that I was enamored with and just could, you know, felt like I can't live without that, I would go up to the front desk and I would say, what do you guys do with the materials when you're done with them? And they're like, we usually just throw them out, or somebody will take it home if they want it. And I would say, if you're not gonna, if no one's keeping it, can you please put my name on the back of that and a phone number? And if no one wants it, like, you could call me. So I used to get all kinds of movie material stuff that way. In fact, I think the Indiana Jones poster on the wall behind Freddy is one of those posters. I'm pretty sure it's a video cassette advertisement poster. And so I went to the video store when New Nightmare came out. I was in college at this point, but of course still a child at heart. And, you know, I saw that one day while I was browsing and I was like, oh my God, you know, and I like ran to the front and I was like, what are you going to do with that Freddy? And they said, we were going to get rid of it like this weekend. And I was like, if you don't want it, I'll take it home with me right now. And they were like, great, because I was in there all the time. Like, everyone that worked there knew me. So they were like, hey man, we know how much you love Freddy and horror movies. It's all yours. So that's how I got that.
Hell yeah. And we got a whole bunch of MJ love all over behind you as well. I can't ignore that.
Yeah. Well, growing up in Chicago, you know.
I mean, he is the greatest player of all time. It's not even, there's no question. So sorry, LeBron fans. It's not even close.
No, it's not.
Not to start a whole thing, but it's not even close. Ray says she would have practiced kissing on him. That sounds about right for Ray. Yeah.
And he's wearing the tight leather pants and everything. So, like,
he is
hard to resist. Hard to resist.
It's rock star. It really is rock star Freddy, that version, you know, the tight leather, I don't know why I think of, just Scott Weiland from Stone Temple Pilots and the tight leather pants. Let's see here. We got a shot of you. Is this just during the
that's
setup
behind the
for
scenes
that same event? Okay.
Yeah.
Because that looks like the same. It's the same wall that or similar wall that I'm seeing there, but in the two. Okay.
You could see all the makeup supplies on the table, the many, you know, thousands of different brushes. But the telling tale of how you can see that that's behind the scenes is look around the eyes, see how everything's still kind of white. And around the mouth, it's kind of white. That's because they haven't added the paint to those areas and the Bondo. And then, of course, you know, they have to powder it all, but they use a special powder that doesn't leave it looking like that. But that's in the middle of the process. The pieces aren't even like entirely seamed together.
Nice. Hell yeah, that's a great behind the scenes shot. And then this one, I want to save this one for last because this is pretty special. Tell us a little bit about this photo with the late great Wes Craven.
So I'll try to make this fast as well. Once I discovered Nightmare and Wes, there was something about Wes and his work that I always felt more of a personal connection to. As much as I love John Carpenter, as much as I adore John's work, Wes is the horror director that always, something about him just really connected with me. And so I just kind of grew up with him on the pedestal. And when I was in college and I saw Scream, it again broke my brain. So much so, I was working at a movie theater at the time, and so much so, the internet and email and all that had basically just been invented, folks. Well, not just been invented, but it had just become mainstream in universities. And I was in the computer lab one night, just kind of fucking around after I finished my work, and I found an email address for Wes. So I sent him an email about Scream 2 because it was coming out in 2 months. And I was like, I'm so excited that you are directing it, and that the entire cast and crew and anyone that's alive, anyone that worked on the first film was basically brought back, because that's how great sequels are made. Look at the Godfather films, look at the Star Wars films, look at the Indiana Jones and the Back to the Future films. All these films are consistently amazing because of the consistency behind and in front of the camera. And you guys are doing that, and I am so elated that you're doing that. Thank you. And I'm a big fan. And yeah, he wrote me back within a week. He sent me an email and he was like, it's funny that you mentioned those sequels, because there's a scene in the upcoming film where we reference a handful of those films. I don't want to spoil anything else for you, but your letter meant a lot, and this, that, and the other. So that was like, it really deepened the connection for me. When I got to Hollywood, I watched him do a live commentary for the first Nightmare at a theater in Santa Monica, and I got him to sign my DVD, but I didn't get a moment with him. But just being in his presence, again, it deepened that connection even more. So cut to working on Never Sleep Again. The day that they were going to interview Wes, of course, I knew all about it. And even though I wasn't necessarily needed on set because of the role I was playing in the crew, I begged, I was like, please let me go. Please, I promise I'll be quiet. I just want to be in the room. So it turns out they did need me, and here's why. The room that they filmed his interview in was surrounded on all sides by glass windows with no tinting, no shades, no nothing. We had enough supplies to cover all the windows except for a swath that was about this wide. But we had Duvetine. But somebody needed to hold it up against the window the entire time that we interviewed him, which was 3.5 hours. So I ended up being that guy. And of course, I was just holding it, and I'm like this the whole time, like just turning around wide-eyed and watching and making sure I'm not slipping, you know, because I'm cramping and everything. But I'm like, I can't fuck this up because it's Wes. So afterwards, Tommy Hudson, who is someone that I've worked with on a lot of projects, the Scream documentary, the Nightmare on Elm Street documentary, the Nightmare on Elm Street book. Tommy wrote the book that I edited. We worked on that book for 3 years. If people haven't seen it, I highly recommend it. It's called Never Sleep Again, and it's the book about the making of the first film. There's stuff in there that you might never have heard. There are photos in there you might never have seen. However, good luck getting a hardcover copy, because we only printed so many of them, and they go on eBay for like usually around $400, $500. Sorry. Wow. But you can find soft covers copies on Amazon. Anyway, so we're done. Tommy knew that I'm sitting there shaking, and like by the time I got done, my arms were still like shaking just from holding for 3 hours. And he was like, look, you really, that was amazing, and without you, I don't know, it would have been me doing it, and there's no way in hell I could have held my arms that long. I know you want a picture with Wes. Would you like to get a picture? And I was like, so he took me over, he introduced him. He's like, this is Lito, our co-producer. And Wes immediately said, oh, you're the poor bastard that had to hold that thing up the whole time. And I said, yes, that was me. So we took this photo. He was incredibly gracious. And then cut to like 4 months later, he came back to another set of ours for the Scream documentary. And we always had posters printed that had the name, you know, had the graphics and the name and the credits for the documentary we did. And we had them signed by anybody that we interviewed. The Elm Street poster has like over 270 different signatures from everybody from the franchise.
Wow.
So they told me, they said, because we know you love Wes, we're going to let you glad handle him when he first comes in, get him whatever he wants to drink and eat. And then we're going to have you ask him to sign the posters. And I was like, okay, great, no problem. So I brought a copy of that photo with me, and I tucked it under all the posters. He came in, we talked for a little bit. I was like, I was the guy, and he's like, the guy against the wall. Yeah, I remember. We took a picture. And I got the chance to actually tell him, I said, we talked to each other via email in college. Like, you might not remember this. And he was like, I vaguely remember that, but I'm impressed that you still remember that. And I was like, you're Wes fucking Craven, dude. Like, I can't tell you how much your work means to me and how much it's impacted my life. And like, you are one of my favorite directors of all time. I put you up there with Spielberg and Hitchcock and Capra and the greats of all time. Like, you were on that list. And he was actually so, I'm going to get emotional talking about it. He was actually so moved that he actually gave me a hug. Oh. And then when we were done having him sign the posters, he pulled the last poster up because he thought there might be more. And there's that picture. And he goes, oh, smart man. And then he signed it for me. He said, to Lito, may all your screams come only in the movies.
That's awesome, man. What a cool moment.
Yeah. He's just such an amazing man, such an amazing guy.
We will, we'll dive into the A Nightmare on Elm Street stuff, but I think one of the things that really made Wes special is that he was able to, not that slashers were hurting in 1984, but he was able to bring something different to the table with A Nightmare on Elm Street, shake things up a little bit, inspire a bunch of other movies like Slumber Party Massacre 2 and all sorts of other stuff, really takes a lot from this kind of world. But then also I thought what was really cool about specifically what he did with Scream is, I think he kind of reinvented slashers again when they had been dead for a couple of years. And then I even think in Scream 4, he reinvigorated just that, at least that franchise, and did something totally new. If you watch Scream 4, you wouldn't even really know that it's the same guy because it was a little more modern. It was more bloody. It was just, all those things that were never, at least in the Scream movies, were never really kind of the featured moments. So yeah, I mean, we definitely, we miss Wes for so many reasons, but just like it makes me curious to think like what he would think about horror in the modern age, and what he would want to see. Before we jump into A Nightmare on Elm Street, I'll just ask you, Lito, what do you think if you were able, if you or someone were able to ask Wes what he would want to see in Scream 7 to reinvigorate the franchise, what do you think he would say to a question like that? I know I'm putting you on the spot here. I know.
No, that's a great question. I mean, I think I think in Wes's work, he had a way of taking a concept to the next logical step. He really did. Like, when you think about his script for Nightmare 3, it's the next logical step. Not just one person's nightmare. Everybody shares a nightmare, and they all form some sort of team. Like, that's the evolution. And then the next step in evolution is the nightmare becomes reality. So, like, even in Scream, you can see him kind of taking these steps. And I feel like one of the steps he would take is we need to not just use this trope of the phone because people expect it, but look at this era that we're living in. We need to take advantage of every single technological piece of anything that we can work into the script, because even though it's going to date the script to some degree, you're fucked that way anyway, because they all have phones in them. You're always going to see whatever model phone they're using, and that dates the film. So I think he would do that because it is the next step. And of course, everybody's talking about AI and all this and how's it going to play in the next film, which great. Like, I hope they're embracing that because I think it's what he would have done.
Perfect. That's a good answer. I like it. I like it. I think he would be pumped as well that Kevin was gonna be, just stepping back into this one and being able to, offer his voice as a director as well. Cool. All right, so we're all caught up. We've shown all the awesome pictures. Let me just make sure I'm not missing anything. It seems like everyone is I'm like, I don't even know where to take the stream right now because everyone's been so entranced by your pictures and your personality that I feel like I'm just extra right now. So I'm gonna keep that theme going. Tell me, give me your like I don't know, your analysis or your look back on the franchise as a whole, and maybe give me your positives, give me your lukewarms, give me your negatives, give me whatever you got about the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise as a whole.
Okay. I wrote some notes because I knew I didn't want to forget certain things, so I'm pulling my notes up. I know that there are people that aren't fans of the character and franchise as much as other characters. And I would never disrespect that. I would never say, hey, you fan how you want to fan, great. I just sometimes get a little bit kind of rubbed the wrong way, like Freddy's claws rubbing on the pipes and the walls. When I hear people putting Freddy down or trashing the Nightmare on Elm Street series, because it's like, what I really want to say to them is, look, I get it. It's not your cup of tea. It's not a guy with a skin face or a hockey mask or a butcher knife stalking people in well-known settings that we all are familiar with, because that's real. And that is something that you really empathize with. And I respect the shit out of that, because that's how I feel about Halloween and Friday the 13th. That's why I only went to summer camp once, because after I saw those films, I was like, never going back. Fuck that. But the thing about Freddy is, I want to tell people, it's like, you dream, right? Yes. Okay. You probably have had nightmares, right? Yes. Okay. Why is it so much more difficult for you to identify with that than it is to identify with the reality that you live in? And I think I could put my finger on it to a degree, and I don't ever want to like psychoanalyze someone, so I'd never say this directly to their face. But I think for some people, it's very much, there's a certain discomfort with subconscious. There's a certain discomfort with nightmares and dreams. I mean, like fantasies. People have a hard time talking about fantasies sometimes, even in relationships that they're in. Oh, I don't want to say that. I don't want to tell you I have a Harley Quinn fetish because, well, I mean, I do. Like, I'm not going to deny that. Like, I love Harley Quinn. I adore the character. And I would share that with someone because that's part of what makes me who I am. I have an obsessive relationship with a lot of my fandoms. That's how my brain works, and that's a whole nother subject. But I want to share these things, and I think I'm comfortable talking about and existing within that realm. I think for some people it's more difficult to want to put themselves in those shoes, if it makes sense. And Freddy, it wasn't just a franchise. What I tell people, if you lived during this era, like I said earlier, you'll understand it. Freddy became a part of the cultural vernacular and lexicon and the pop culture lexicon in a way that even Michael and Jason didn't. And what I mean by that is, you couldn't walk 2 stores into a mall without seeing Freddy on one of those storefronts. We didn't get that with Michael and Jason, and it's not their fault as characters. It's the fault of the studios for not merchandising them the way Freddy was merchandised. Freddy had everything. He had shirts. He had there was a Nightmare on Elm Street 2 poster before pretty much anything else. I remember seeing that at a Spencer's, and it's like, oh my God, this character is only 2 films in, and he already has a poster. And I loved it because I loved Freddy, but I was like, that's crazy. Like, you usually only see that like Frankenstein or something like that. He was on toys. He was on blankets. He was on towels. He was on squirt gun. I mean, like, you name it, they made it. They made a fucking TV show out of the guy. Now, They probably shouldn't have, as much as I respect and love some of the people that worked on those, shows, and it gave us great actors like Lori Petty and Brad Pitt and Mariska Hargitay. They all got their first big break on Freddy's Nightmares. But it's, Freddy was a part of Americana in a way that is very hard to explain. I'm not going to say it was on the level of Star Wars, because he wasn't. But in terms of horror, he was the Star Wars of horror in the 80s. Or I should say, he was the Darth Vader. And Nightmare on Elm Street was the Star Wars of horror in the 80s. And another thing, sorry, I'm rambling, but another thing that I think really sets the franchise apart, and I don't want anyone to take this the wrong way, because God, I love Michael and Jason. You know how much I love my Michael Myers. But Freddy really built New Line Cinema. He turned them from a nothing company that was going to go broke possibly over the first Nightmare on Elm Street if it wasn't a success, because just the money they put into that film was such a colossal financial risk for them that if that film had not paid off as a hit, they wouldn't exist today. And he not only paid that off, but he turned New Line Cinema, yes, just that's why they call it the House of Freddy Built. Yes, he turned them into a contender. And I'm talking a contender that won Oscar Gold, multiple Oscar Golds. That's something that Jason
Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, and that's something that something Jason can't claim. It's something that Michael can't claim, because Paramount was already big. And Jason is kind of the redheaded stepchild of Paramount. As much as they might deny it nowadays, back in that era, slashers were like, we're going to make the shit out of these, but don't act like we're proud of them, because fuck that shit. No one will take us seriously ever again. And, Trancas has never reached those heights. Not yet. They might someday. But I mean, New Line did. So you really have to give this franchise credit, because it was transcendent and it was transformative in ways that none of the other slasher franchises of the time were. The only one that I'd say has come close is Scream, because it's part of Dimension. But Dimension was already getting big when Scream came out. So I feel like they were already on their way anyway. It would have happened without Scream. They still would have made Shakespeare in Love and all these Oscar-winning films.
Yeah, because Dimension was like a part of Miramax, right? It was basically their darker films and everything like that. And yeah, I mean, Freddy had that home for so long. Michael's been kind of, it's Trancas now, but also like Universal, I think, distributed the second Halloween film. They distributed the Blumhouse movies that were just made as well. But yeah, characters like Michael, he never really had that consistent home like Jason did and Freddy. And now Jason is, part of New Line as well. So, or at least the name Friday the 13th is owned by New Line Cinema at this point. So all those rights are kind of crazy. And some of the Nightmare on Elm Street rights are a little bit in limbo as well, with the Craven estate, and some of them belonging to New Line as well. But hopefully we'll see something. It is a mess. And that's the one thing I think that's the best thing about Michael now when we look at the big three, is that Michael, the people that control the rights to Michael and the Halloween franchise are still very much involved and very interested in doing things. So it's not landed in the lap of someone that's like, I don't know what to do with this, because I don't know Wes's kids or anything like that. I'm not aware if they're involved in the industry in a very deep way, but one would assume they aren't, or else we would have seen or heard something at this point. Hopefully we get some news on where to take Freddy. And I guess that's I could sit here and kind of blah, blah, blah about how I feel about everything, but these people can hear me talk about that anytime. So I'm curious to know, just while we're on this little train here, where do you see a Nightmare on Elm Street going if they ever redo this thing? Now we live in this era where, Robert said he's done, but it's like they could stick him in a mocap suit. They could have a body double and him play this part together. And yes, at the end of the day, it would be technically a CG creation or version of Freddy, but it could still be Robert's performance. Robert's facial features captured. Is that something
Bye,
that
Jamie.
sounds
Bye,
like...
Jamie.
Take care, Jamie. Thank you so much for hanging out. I hope you feel better soon. And yeah, get some good rest. Drink those electrolytes, let me tell you. Now if we...
Is that...
How do you feel
if that something that interests me?
Just the idea, like, do you think it's something that's like, you know, if you had all the hypotheticals, you know, if you had everything on the table, would you be interested in seeing what something like that would look like? Bringing Robert back, but having it be a little bit different and more modern.
Yes. Yeah. So I feel about the Nightmare franchise the way I feel about Lethal Weapon, Indiana Jones, Back to the Future. There's a Die Hard. I've said for years, probably decades at this point, I've been saying, why are these not fully fledged, decades-long video game franchises that they release a new game every 3 years? They get the actors to voice the characters, give them the big paycheck, because you're going to make a shit ton of money with any one of those games that's a new story in these franchises. They'll all make money.
Oh, yeah.
Do them that way. So I feel I'm totally on board with that idea, not because I don't think anyone else can play Robert, but I think that there's a very good way to pass the torch in that film to the next generation of Freddy Krueger. And there's a way to work that into the story. And of course I have a pitch, but I mean, no one's asking me for my pitch, but you know, there are ways to do it. When I was working on that gig at Warner Brothers, one of the people that was in charge of the effects for the haunted mazes was R. Christopher Biggs, who has become a really good friend of mine and my wife. He did the motorcycle sequence from part 5. He was in charge of the effects for that sequence. And he's worked on basically, you know, dozens of, you name it, horror films. And one day I was doing something in the house and I heard him talking to two of the Warner, like, suit and tie people. And he was like, well, shit. He's like, they keep talking about making a new movie. Why not just hire this guy? He's like, he could do the talk, the walk. I mean, he does everything like Robert, and then just put Robert's voice on him, you know, because they were talking about how Robert feels too old. And again, people might say that sounds arrogant, but like, there are people like me, like Paul Bailey is another guy. If they hired Paul Bailey, if people don't know who he is, he could walk in and play Freddy like that. He knows the character in just exactly the same way. He knows the motions. He knows the like the angles, the voice. Everything he does is spot on. And like, let it live on through that, because why not? Robert, you don't have to do any of the hard work. Like, all you need to do is show up and, you know, do the stuff. And then maybe they use your face in a mocap studio to put onto the other actor's face. Done. Yep.
Yeah, the movie that or the person that Lito's referencing here, guys, Paul Bailey, he did what I believe the fan film that him and his brother put together. It's the last, is it the last nightmare of Detective, gosh, it's something like, I'm forgetting the full name of it.
Detective Coleman.
Okay. And it's a prequel, and oh my gosh, Paul already kind of looks like a young Robert. And then Paul is like this modern day original Lon Chaney, right? He makes his own appliances. So he made these appliances, these prosthetic appliances for his face to make him look even more like Robert, not just to look like Freddy. It's in, when you look at him with these, it's one of the most like punk rock awesome things I've ever seen, because it's these two brothers that put this thing together. It's a very ambitious fan film, and it's very effective. And yeah, Paul is he's got the look, and I think you're kind of right there where it's, you know, you can still people can still have their cake and eat it too. There is something about the Nightmare fandom, unfortunately, where a lot of people are drawing this very hard, almost political line of Robert or nothing. And I guess you're just going to get nothing then, if that's how you feel, because there's got to be a way to pass this character on. Multiple people have played Dracula very well. We've seen different iterations of Frankenstein's monster. I mean, shit, people have jumped into the Darth Vader suit. and portrayed him. You know, it happens all the time. And
Yeah,
yeah,
I mean,
Mandy, I see your what you guys are talking about, and I was going to bring this up because you know, the young gentleman that plays Vecna on Stranger Things.
oh yeah,
He's got, so is it Jamie Bowers Campbell? Now
yeah,
Vecna is already pretty similar to Freddy. I mean,
yep.
let's just call it what it is. So I don't know if that would be too close for fans, or maybe even too close for the performer. You never know. I don't think anyone would turn down playing Freddy at this point. He certainly has the chops and the looks. I mean, I guess the whole point that you're trying to make here, Lito, is yes, it is very possible to continue this character. You know, and even if Robert can't be involved, there's got to be a way to bring him back. But I do love what you're saying about the video game, because I think, you know, we had the Friday the 13th game. Apparently there's another one in the works. We've seen TCM, we've seen Killer Clowns. I think the Halloween game looks really interesting, and I think everyone's no pun intended, gun shy about it just because of the experiences they've had with other horror games. But the Halloween game is going to show us some of that, you know, Michael escaping from the facility, how Michael gets to Haddonfield, what happens in between. And while I don't want to see those kinds of things told in a film version, specifically for Michael, because I like the mystery, I do like the idea of filling in those story gaps in something like a video game or a comic book, you know, and like you were saying about bringing in a new generation of fans, you know, that as these franchises continue to age, and as the people that are our age that initially fell in love with them, you know, grow up and have kids of our own and all that kind of stuff, there's a whole new generation out there that are going to experience these characters for the first time. Some kids might experience Michael Myers for the first time through this video game. That might bring them back. I know that's happening with that dreadful Jason Universe design, that kids are seeing that in Fortnite and all that stuff. Maybe that's making them go back and find, these ridiculous sunglasses eye holes. They're crazy. But a guy like Jamie Bowers Campbell, you know, with Stranger Things wrapping up, that is just another way to have that familiarity with the audience that is getting wrapped up in not only horror, but 80s nostalgia. And they might have not ever experienced it, but there's something about it that's still very alluring to people that were maybe born just within the last 20 to 25 years. Yeah,
and I mean, and let's be honest about this. They're not going to let this franchise just die. They're not going to let it wilt and die and just sit around, you know, in purgatory forever. They can't. There's too much money to be made from it. And the Indiana Jones game that was released last year or earlier this year, I can't remember when, anyway, that game proves that you can do these games and just use voiceover artists that can do an impression, and fans are going to turn out just salivating for it. And why not? Nightmare on Elm Street is the perfect idea for a video game. You can do anything, and you can do it cheaper than you could do it in a film. Why would you not take advantage of this?
You can gauge interest with a video game. It's, you know, like you were saying, you don't have to put in all that financial money or the financial the burden or the risk, and you can find out, like, hey, is this something that, like, kids that are in high school or even younger are intrigued and interested in this character? I mean, because their parents probably grew up with them, so there's got to be something there for sure. Yeah, I think Erica, like, I think that you guys are dead on. I do think that, you know, I think there are a handful of actors that could step into this role, and especially after getting back into all the Stranger Things stuff. And I don't know if you've seen this, Lito, but there is footage of him recording the voice for Vecna, Jamie Bowers. Jamie Bowers Campbell, or Jamie Campbell. His obviously they're putting some sort of post effect on there, but I heard his raw vocal recording. He does like do his own drop with the vocal, and the guy has a voice actor kind of character about him. You know, they're not bringing in a ringer to do that Vecna voice, so he gets to do Henry and Vecna, and it's like, well, there we go. This guy is more talented than you would know from wearing this amazing suit that they've put him in for this character. Like, there are people out there that are up for the job. And like you're saying with the mocap stuff, I mean, Nick Castle came back him and a younger guy play Michael Myers in the game. So he has a guy that he's like, this is how I would move. Because that's the weird thing with Michael versus with Freddy, everyone wants the personality and the voice and the mannerisms that Robert brought. And then with Michael, there's this weird, and you can speak to this because guys, Lito also cosplays as Michael and looks to me exactly like fucking Nick Castle. And it's a Nick Castle, Dick Warlock like combo. It's really, really good. And the secret sauce with Nick are the movements. No one is really like James Hugh Courtney got really close, probably the closest we've seen. But that's the weird thing with Nick is he's just this kind of regular guy. He's a director and a musician. But as far as acting goes, he brings this thing to Michael that is just like one of one.
But you know what's the funny thing is the thing that cracks me up about Nick, we're totally getting off topic, but sorry, I have to say this. The thing that cracks me up about him is he's like, oh, it's no big deal. I just, John said walk and I just walked. And it's like, yeah, but you're kind of full of shit because your walk is not an everyman walk. Like there are scenes in the first Halloween where he is gliding up, like when he's chasing Laurie across the street and she's at the door, he's gliding with his steps. There's something about the way he moves. And I know he has dance background and you could see it when he comes down the stairs. It took me a decade at least to master the way he comes down the stairs and looking straight forward and not looking at your feet, because it's this like graceful kind of like no movement is wasted. Everything is just working in sync, and it's eerie as fuck. So when he's like, oh, I just walk, it's like, nah, like you're trying to hide it, but you do something.
Yeah, the way he holds his hands. I would say my last thing I'll say about Nick Castle's amazing Michael performance is it feels like pure evil trying to imitate a person and not an actual person. There's something uncanny valley not only about the mask but about the movements of the performer as well. And Erica makes a good point here. Robert plays this Victor Creel, so he plays the father of this kid that could step in and do a really great Freddy interpretation there. So let me see, what else do I got for you, Lito? How many other questions can I throw at you? I know there's some stuff rattling around in this little brain of mine. So are you a Nancy trilogy kind of guy? Like what's the definitive, when you think of a Nightmare on Elm Street, like what are the definitive films in the franchise? What's the must see? Do you have an order that you watch them in, or like, when you're craving some nightmare, do you have like, I need to hit these up, or do you just go through the whole damn thing?
I don't go through the whole damn thing very often. I've seen them all so many times. Thanks for watching Stars and Music. I'm not going to say the other name.
Trashbox.
But I've seen the other one so many times that literally on set on Never Sleep Again, and this is just part of how my strange brain works. They used to, before I got on set, if they had a question about a scene in the film, they would put the DVD in and cue it up and then hit play and listen or watch or whatever. Once I was on set, they would literally stop whatever they're doing, turn and say, hey, Lito, in that one scene, when this happens, what's the exact lines? And I would say, da, 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 da. And they were like, okay, great. And then one of them would almost always be like, are we sure that's right? Like, for the first, like, day or so, they would double check, and then after that they're like, yeah, we're not going to double check. There's something about his brain that he just retains a lot of bullshit, so it's hard for me to get. I think a lot of us fans the obsessive fans, I think it's hard for me to want to necessarily go back to some of them anymore. I almost hate to say that because I do love them all, and I watch them all at least once every 5 years or so. But it's kind of like with Halloween. I'm not going to pull out Halloween 5. I'm just not. I'm not going to pull out Halloween Resurrection. I'm usually not going to pull out Freddy's Dead. I'm usually not going to pull out A Nightmare on Elm Street 5. It's very seldom that I'll reach for 2. They're the ones that I have that are my go-tos, that are like comfort food. And those are generally 1, 3, 4, Seven, and even Freddy versus Jason to a degree.
Sure.
But yeah, those are my comfort nightmares. Which nightmare is my favorite, Stephanie? It's a tie between the first and the seventh. It just depends on my mood that day. It's kind of like how I feel about the Indiana Jones films or the Godfather films. Just where I am in my era will define which one is speaking to me more at that time.
Yeah.
But it's those two, followed by Dream Warriors, because that's, you know, again, if you want to do a sequel right, just follow that template. Do everything that they did. Just take it to the next level, you know, and expand the mythology while you're doing that, while respecting the mythology. That's one of the biggest problems I have with two, as we've discussed many times.
Yeah.
It's so after Dream Warriors would be Dream Master, which I think is really underrated, and a lot of the times it gets a shit rap, and that bothers crap out of me because people are like, oh, that's when Freddy went funny and when he went MTV and this and that and the other, and it's like, yeah, but Freddy was already funny. They started that shit in part two. Like, some of the stuff he says in part two is darkly comic. Like, it's not like, you know, it got taken further and further and further, but like that movie, it's really well made considering the burdens it had placed on it as well. Like with the writer's strike and just they already had a date before they even finished the script. They did that with 4 and 5, you know? So it's like, considering what they're up against, I think that's a really damn good, entertaining film. I guess I would follow that with Freddy versus Jason, then part 2, then 5, and then in way dead last, Freddy's Dead. And I don't even really acknowledge the remake. I have a problem with Freddy's Dead because, and again, I respect the hell out of Rachel Talalay. She's amazing. She really is. But I had such issues with what they did with the character Freddy in Freddy's Dead, her and Michael DeLuca, the choices that they made narratively, because it really, to me, betrayed Wes's vision of who Freddy was. Freddy was not a family man. Freddy was not married. Freddy was a drunken, derelict, child molesting, child killing, sicko pervert that lived in the boiler room. When you go back and you watch the first Nightmare in 4K, you can see in the background that that's clearly where he lives. There's a cot. There's pictures of porno chicks taped on the wall. There's clothes drying, hanging on a line. There's all this stuff. Freddy lived there. Freddy didn't have no fucking wife. So, like, I have real problems with that movie because of that. So
that's one of those, you see it all the time, like last ditch effort. We don't know what to do with the story. Let's bring in a child. Let's bring in a baby. Let's do, you know, it's like, what can we, trying to find some, you know, grasping at straws to find some sort of way to bring that character back or to, you know, peel back some different layer. But yeah, it's odd to me that when I watched Freddy's Dead the last time I watched it, I was like, well, he's scarier as the family man than he is when he's the dream demon in this movie. And while that's like kind of cool, it's kind of backwards. So it's like, I think he should still be scarier as the demon form, even though while he was just a regular man, he was up to some really extremely nefarious shit. And I did want to bring up, Stephanie said, Freddy always had his one-liners and dark humor, and I think that's true. I think even in the first movie, there are some really fun moments, but he's got it is a darker, more sadistic, I call it sadistic joy that he finds, you know, and yeah, clearly that ramped up as movies went, but it is funny that people will, on the one hand, praise something like Dream Warriors and then say that Dream Master is too far gone, when it's like, you're kind of splitting hairs there on the portrayal of the character.
Yeah, and it's funny that you said that, because that brings me to Aaron's comment. Aaron says, yeah, but Freddy's funny stuff in the first 3 were campy. I'm sorry, Aaron, it doesn't get more campy, in my opinion, than "Welcome to prime time, bitch," as he's pulling someone's head into a TV. You know, when he's, you know, when he says, perhaps if there was more of me to spread around, and you see him in mirrors appearing at, like, that stuff to me is already getting into the campy. That's not scary, Freddy. Like if he's going to be scary and appear in mirrors, he's not going to telegraph it. he's going to be like, sorry to keep you waiting. Now there's plenty of me. And then they're all going to jump out at the same time. That's not, to me, that's already, you know, I'm telling a joke. Like, so
I think by 4, him saying bitch all the time, I think you could put like a bitch counter, because Welcome to Primetime Bitch was such a hit. And it's even more so, I think, in 5 too. But you know what? I'm right there with you though. I've really warmed up to part 4. I think it is totally like underrated. I've got some buddies in this YouTube sphere that say that they like it more than Dream Warriors, and I'm definitely, I mean, it's their opinion, so I'm not going to tell them they're wrong, but I do think those two are a lot closer than most people would probably at first blush give them credit for. There's something about 4. I really like how it, you know, Alice's character, there's some really, I just watched it last night, so there's some interesting things. You know, she's got her mirror covered up, and her brother's like, you can't even see yourself in there. And I'm like, fuck, that's like the point of her whole character. The whole point of her character is, as these people pass away and she takes the pictures off, she sees more of them, but she's also taking a piece of them. You know, a piece of them is literally going like to her. And
it's a puzzle. It's a puzzle.
Yeah, and then she jumps through the window to get to him at the end. So the mirror. So it's like the mirror and the friends and her not seeing herself until these people have gone, and that your friends are your superpowers is essentially also, I think, one of the points that the Dream Master's, you know, saying as well. I was like, you know, it doesn't make up for all the little things that I can sort of pick apart about the franchise, because I think the lore is very spotty when it comes to Freddy. The superpowers are like, it's like every movie there's a new set of rules, and it's not very congruent really, and that's okay. These are fantasy horror movies. It's okay, you know, they're not trying to be grounded like something like Scream or whatever. But yeah, I think the Dream Master is, yeah, definitely, if you are of the thought where maybe, you know, I think sometimes that gets, I don't know if it gets confused with part 5, or those two get sort of melded into one another because they are so closely tied with the story, even more than 3 and 4 are. Although that makes for a nice little tight kind of trilogy in and of itself, 3, 4, and 5. But yeah, I think 4 has got a lot of really good stuff going. Really excellent soundtrack. And is it part 4 where Angelo Badalamenti, is that how you say his name? Did he
3? Part 3.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because that kind of blew my mind, because I'm like, oh my god, the guy that did the Twin Peaks music,
Twin Peaks,
and all these other movies, and I'm like, that's so crazy. And then in part 4, I was diving into the IMDb while watching it yesterday, and you've got, I mean, obviously there's Rennie Harlan there, who you know, has had his ups and downs throughout his career, but I think 4 is definitely a shining spot for him. What Screamin' Mad George worked on that movie. John Carl Beekler's there on this huge effects team that they had, and these really ambitious, beautiful effects. I mean, I think that's one thing that, you know, say what you want about the story, and I can certainly criticize how they handle all those little things, but man, these are about the kills in a big way. They're about the effects in a really big way, and the imagination. Like, if you're working in effects in that era, you wanted to work on a Nightmare on Elm Street film. Like, you know, you just had to. Yeah. That was how a lot of people kind of got their foot in the door to do other things. I mean, even the guy that directed the 5th film was like a storyboard artist and like a concept artist, I believe, is kind of how he started. And so, you know, these are visually driven films, and I even see with something like Final Destination with that franchise, I'm like, that's kind of a Nightmare on Elm Street of that generation, because it is more about those Rube Goldberg kills, and it's not so much about the characters necessarily being that important, but the films are spectacles in and of themselves. And I think we find that, you know, that kind of started with A Nightmare on Elm Street.
Yeah, and I think, you know, the other thing about the films, I'm reading all these comments. It's really funny. Just I'm like, I want to talk about that another, but I obviously we don't. But I think it's also interesting in Nightmare on Elm Street, because to me, even in the worst films, we knew who these characters were. Like, to me, the kids in the Nightmare on Elm Street films always felt fairly clearly defined. Like, and part of the reason for that is because whatever their strength or fear was usually got turned back on them in some way. So you had to know what this person was about. Like you had to know like what was their thing, what was their talent, what made them special, what's their persona like, because Freddy flipped that. And I think that's something that I love about the character, is that because he's in your head, because he knows your most private thoughts, he can utilize those against you in such a cruel and tormenting way. And again, it sounds so like horrifying to say it. I think that's what I love about the character, but it's something that, you know, sets him apart. It makes him very unique. And I think for me, that was just, it's just fascinating. It's like, I mean, what other killer turns someone into a fucking giant cockroach? Maybe Leprechaun, you know, because or the Djinn from Wishmaster, but those guys kind of, they wouldn't exist if it weren't for Freddy. You know, their lore is obviously definitely inspired in some way by the lore of Nightmare on Elm Street. And I keep saying, the guys that did Stranger Things, if they don't have a pitch and they don't get the job for the next Nightmare on Elm Street, something's not right. Like, I'm telling you, like, I think those guys would be incredible at it. Like I mean, last season was basically, for me, I was like, this is their audition pitch. Like, this literally feels like their pitch to direct the next Nightmare on Elm Street. And I loved it. I was like, I'm all on board for this, because this makes me feel like a kid again. All of this, not just the 80s setting, everything about this feels so Nightmare on Elm Street that it was just like, okay, next episode, you know.
Season 4 is, it just, you know, flies on by, and it is about that, you know, exposing people for the things that they keep buried down deep, you know, and those are the things that undo them because they're not sharing them with anybody. And yeah, Duffer Brothers, like Erica says, and like you just said, they would be great for Nightmare on Elm Street. Mike Flanagan doesn't have to make all of the movies, because for a while it was just, no matter what, people would be like, I want to see Mike Flanagan do. It's like, he can't do everything.
Yeah, I know. Like, give the guy a break. Aaron, hey, real quick, Aaron, you're right about part 4, but again, I don't know how old or young you are, and I'm not going to ask for specifics, Aaron. But again, it's easy to see that now. It's very easy to see that when you're just, you know, binge watching all the Nightmare on Elm Streets, or you buy the box set and you watch them one after another or whatever. It's very obvious. But at the time, it wasn't as obvious because it was a gradual change. I mean, it's not like it went from funny to scary from 1 to 2. It went, you know, scary to funny through a course of 4 films. And again, you have to understand, Freddy was like James Bond. He was the James Bond of horror. I mean, Rennie Harlan says that in Never Sleep Again. He comes out and says, you know, at this point I knew Freddy was a star and he was the James Bond of horror. So I thought we'll just make the film like that. And it's like, it's kind of hard to argue with that when he's slapped all over, you know, 70% of the merchandising in the mall.
Yeah,
they
leaned into it.
You have to tone it a different way.
Yeah, and they leaned into it because that's just kind of the way that people were responding. The movies were making, you know, Dream Warriors must have made the most out of the first few, and then so they're like, all right, that's what people want. People do want, they did want a Freddy that talked a little bit more. And I totally get you. I think when you were talking about how he, you know, had bursted into the pop culture world, I do think that a lot of that is having a verbal villain. You know, Chucky very similarly got very popular very quick. By the second Child's Play movie, I felt like Chucky was a pretty big deal by that second movie. And that's what you get when you have a killer with personality. Now, Art the Clown doesn't speak, but Art the Clown has a lot of personality. But Michael Myers and Jason don't really have personality. They just turn their head and look at you, and they go for the kill. You know, there's not much personality there. But I think that's one of those things that draws the pop culture in. And I think one of the things New Line was trying to do with Freddy is they were just leaning into what they knew worked. And yeah, it is easier to see now. For me, I still really enjoy the Dream Master. I enjoy it more every time I watch it. That's the kind of movie it is for me. Is the last 3 times I've watched it, I'm like, damn, I think this is in my top 3 now. Like, I really love New Nightmare, but I think the Dream Master kind of edged out new nightmare just because I have so much fun with the Dream Master. Whereas a
Right.
movie like Freddy's Revenge, I really when I was a kid, and that was one that not many people liked, I really enjoyed it as a kid. And then the more I've watched it, the more I'm like, man, there's none of this makes sense. Like Freddy's able to do things in the dream world and not in the dream world. People that aren't asleep are doing stuff, which they also do in 5. You don't have to be asleep in 5, which is troubling to the lore. I think that's one of those things. It's like, well, you're undercutting the main conceit is that you have to be asleep. That's where Freddy operates, and they were already doing that in 2. They kind of threw that out there, you know, which is, I think, an unfortunate part about 2. Now, I'm curious to get your thoughts on this, Lito, because I know that you're kind of cooled off on 2 as well. You know, a lot of people, let's just go, I'm just going to come out and say it, and I might upset some people, I don't know. A big reason why a lot of people, I think, really like Freddy's Revenge now is the gay subtext, the homosexual subtext has become huge for the fans. Now, it was never intended by the people that wrote or made the film. They have said that numerous times. That was something that didn't even occur to them while they were making the movie. But a lot of fans have sort of like perceived that through the film. And so it gets, I think, some added kudos because it seems like it was doing something brave and courageous. But I hate to break it to you, it wasn't. However, anytime a piece of art gets put out there, it also becomes the audience's piece of art as well. So I'm not discounting that element is perceived there. But I also have to say this too. Subtext doesn't make up for a story that doesn't make sense and lore that is choppy and has nothing to do with the first movie or the movie that followed it. So I think that's where, to me, Freddy's Revenge is existing in this odd kind of black hole where it just doesn't really fit. You could kind of throw it away, you know?
Yeah. And, you know, Jack Shoulder and David Chaskin, the director and the writer, respectively, they and some of the producers will say that, well, it was the second film. That you have to understand there weren't 3 or 4 films, you know, that had established what the logic and lore is. So, like, you know, we just kind of thought it could be whatever it wants. And it's like, yeah, but the first film defines the lore pretty directly, and it pretty much adheres to that until the very last scene, which was not Wes's idea. It was Bob Shaye's idea.
Yeah. That's
why that doesn't make any sense when you look at it within the context of the rest of the film. But if you look at everything else that precedes it, it all fucking makes sense. And he lays it out for you visually and verbally. So when Jack Shoulder, God, I want to smack him, when he says, well, I never felt that the logic in the first film was that, thought out. It was sort of tenuous to begin with. I'm just like, dude, fuck you. Like, you're a dick. Like, don't say that to make excuses for your shitty choices. Like, you made shitty choices because you guys were making this movie for money. And that's fine. It's show business. I get it.
Yeah.
But the reason that you went ahead and made that film is because you had decided that was a script that you were using. And Wes said, I'm not averse to coming back, but this script needs work. No, we got to make it right away because money. Well, then I'm not going to make it. You know, it has to have my writing or it's not done. And that film it like throws everything at the wall to see what sticks. It takes stuff away that used to make sense. And it's just, I like the film in spots. I think the makeup effects are all fantastic. The transformation scene is just unbelievably good. But and the score I think is really cool. But yeah, it's really hard for me to get through because I just see such an almost disrespect in the film where they're just like, look, it just makes something scary. It doesn't matter if it makes sense. And it's like a giant parakeet. Like I don't really understand that at all. Like, okay. And yes, Freddy's Looking 2 is scary, Aaron. Yeah.
It's really good. No, it's a really, I love the wet look. I love the kind of the witch nose that they gave him. You know,
the contacts.
I really dig that. Yeah, I think there are some elements there that work for me in and of themselves, but the piece, the sum of all the parts doesn't really, it just, I don't know what it, like, I have some notes here where I said the movie Saving Grace. Well, that would be Clue Gulager.
Yeah.
Between this film and Return of the Living Dead, Gulager was the king of horror back in '85. My big thing that I noticed is I was like, oh my God. So when he's killing the coach, and we don't have to harp on every little detail, but when he's killing the coach and all the equipment in the gym, in the office comes to life, the tennis balls and the, all that stuff starts attacking the coach. I'm like, how's this happening? Is the coach asleep? Like, so Freddy is just now interacting with inanimate objects. Like he doesn't have to. So I'll buy that he was trying to work through Jesse, but now it's just like whatever they need him to do. The shower starts spraying blood, but this is the real world that this is happening in. I'm just like, these things are, maybe I'm diving too deep into it, but that's just what I do when I'm going to revisit these movies more and more. And it just seems to me like it's a total abandonment of the lore that they set up. The plates in the kitchen get zapped by lightning through the window that doesn't even break the window. There's just, and then the parakeet, you bring that up. There's just a whole bunch of stuff. Freddy getting killed by true love is, I don't even want to say it. I'll get in trouble if I say it. I was maybe the gayest thing about the film. And that's just, and I just like, I'm saying it for funny effect, of course, but I think like, that's another thing that I noticed in these movies, bringing Freddy back and killing Freddy. They have a real tough time with these. That's why I think New Nightmare is so awesome, because New Nightmare finds a really creative way to bring him back instead of like, oh, a baby's dreaming about him. How does the fucking baby inside Alice know about Freddy Krueger? Like, this is we're not even going to explain any of this stuff. And so that was like and then he gets very easily tricked by the young little Jacob, who's just like, hey, I want to learn from you. And Freddy starts acting like a cartoon character instead of a dream demon at that point. So that always seemed to be, as these movies went on, I was like, man, they really don't know how to bring him back and how to get rid of him, but they know that they want these creative, fun kills. It's like they knew what they wanted in the middle of the movie. However, when it comes to storytelling, the beginning and the end even more so are the most important parts.
So, and I think
go ahead.
I was going to say with part 2 also, the other thing is, why are you doing a possession storyline if the first film had none of that and people responded to everything in the first film? Don't reinvent the wheel just because, well, there's never been another film besides the first one. Okay, that's fine. Just copy what they did in the fucking first one. Every other franchise does that, you stupid fucks. Like, it's not that hard. Like, you don't need possession. Like, Freddy works in other ways. Everybody dreams. Duh.
Yeah. It is. It's like I'm always interested to see people's takes on that movie, because it seems as time goes on, it's not so much about what the movie actually does. It's what the person like feels the movie is trying to say, instead of like the actual product that's there. And you have to judge the film by the actual finished product that's there. Okay, so we're coming up on 2 hours. I don't want to keep you here all night. I also understand that our audience, maybe some people have actual lives that they want to get to. However, I do want to get your thoughts. You had mentioned Freddy versus Jason, which is, I've got these weird feelings about Freddy versus Jason. I'll say them really quick, and then I'm curious to hear what you have got to say. I think it's a fun enough movie. Like, I think it's a total blast. It is like the MTV sort of thing. Ronnie Yu does a really good job at directing like these music video, feature-length music videos kind of. And it's fun to see this like Elseworlds kind of thing come into play, this sort of comic book come to life. But at the end of the day, I mean, ultimately it feels more like a Freddy movie than it does a Jason movie, because Jason is just kind of like the pawn that Freddy is using, which is a theme throughout the franchise. But I'm sort of like take it or leave it with Freddy versus Jason. I don't think it's bad, but I guess it doesn't, I'm not like going to be like, fuck that movie, because it doesn't take itself too seriously. But what do you got to say about Freddy versus Jason?
I mean, my feeling is they knew what the fuck they were doing once they decided that they were going to have a weigh-in at Bailey's or Caesars or whatever it was in Las Vegas. If you've never seen this, people, go to YouTube and type in Freddy versus Jason weigh-in Las Vegas. They
Yes,
literally
like a
did.
fight. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, they knew what they had, they knew what they were doing, and I'm sure marketing had that planned before the film even started being filmed, because that's how New Line's machine always worked.
Hmm.
And I mean, I look at it as, I think it's, I love Ronnie Yu's style, like you said, in terms of what he brings to it, energy wise, visually, how he uses the camera, how the film is edited, because it's very much, again, like a lot of films, a product of its generation, but it has the Ronnie Yu kind of
Yeah.
signatures in terms of visuals and energy. And the only thing about it is, I just wish he had known a little bit more about the lore of the two characters, because there are spots in that film where it's like you kind of dropped the ball on that one. And I know that the writers, Shannon and Swift, they didn't drop the ball. Like, those guys are like, they're like us. They know these franchises, they know the details, they know the characters, they know the lines, they listen to the soundtracks, they have shit all over their room. Like, those guys are fans like we are. So I know that they weren't the ones that said, no notice, just, do this and then edit that other scene out. It's like, no, you can't do that, because your fans are going to fucking notice. And I think
Yeah.
studios are finally catching on to that because of things like TikTok and Reddit and X, Twitter, whatever. They finally understand, like, you got to be real careful, man, because you piss off your fan base, you're going to lose a huge chunk of money, and
Hmm.
it, they always seem to be a little bit behind in that regard, unfortunately. But I think they're
Yeah.
finally starting to catch up. I like Freddy versus Jason. I think it's fun. It's not one, again, that I would reach for. It's not one of my first choices. But there's a lot about the film that I think is enjoyable, and Robert is clearly just having a blast. You can see that.
Hmm.
You can see he made a shit ton of money in that movie. I actually remember looking at the budget breakdowns, because that's part of the materials that I got when I was doing the documentary, and I could see some financial figures, let's just say, and I was like,
Ah.
okay then. But I just think there's a lot of really fun stuff to watch, and as long as you're not trying to treat it like a Nightmare on Elm Street 1 or 3, you're gonna have a good time. Plus,
Hmm.
I'm sorry if you're watching, Jenny, but Monica Keena is extremely easy on the eyes, voluptuous blonde.
Yeah.
There's a lot to like
Yeah.
for me, because that's my style. So
Yeah, one of the best chests in the franchise for sure.
yeah, sorry folks, but it's true.
It's just we're guys. It's gonna happen. We're gonna talk about boobs at some point. This is actually not as dirty as most of my streams when I'm alone. So thank you for bringing some order of class to the stream.
Honk,
Yeah,
honk.
and ooga, ooga. I love, like, the thing that cracks me up. Yeah, Jason is now all of a sudden afraid of water.
Yeah,
Okay, I don't understand that.
yeah.
The pinball thing, that whole fight in the dream world, where I'm just like, this doesn't make any sense. There is, yeah, I don't know. It's fun enough. I love kind of poking fun at it just because it is what it is. But you're right, like Ronnie Yu style. Bride of Chucky and Freddy versus Jason have a very similar look and feel and soundtrack and all that kind of stuff. And I think that's definitely a credit to Ronnie Yu.
Yeah.
However, I think I've got it. I think I have to unfortunately give Ronnie Yu the credit for the really poor use of the other F word in there. That just like seems it was cringy when the movie was made. So just for everyone that might be a little bit younger, it still was cringy then. It was like, oh damn. Like, this was said with some like hatred behind it. Like, this isn't even like funny.
She spits it out.
It's brutal.
It's a venomous kind of use of the word. You're just like, oh,
it's a hard F.
Ooh.
It's a hard F on the other F word.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's one of those weird things where I know the writers were like, we did not write that in the movie. We want everyone to know that was not us. So I'll give Ronnie that credit. And maybe something was lost in translation because he grew up somewhere else. So maybe he thought it would come across in a different way. But the character does get killed almost immediately after she says it. So
it's almost like instant karma. The other thing about that movie that's another missed opportunity, and I know this just from you know, my work and stuff. The score by Graham Revell, who again, in and of himself, he's, you know, a competent composer for horror. And he has a great credit list. But I know for a fact that Harry Manfredini and Charles Bernstein, who are both friends, and I know this because I'm friends with both of them and I see them at events and things, and, you know, you catch up and all that stuff. They had actually talked to each other when they heard the film was in production about doing a joint score and finding a way to combine their signature sounds from both franchises into one score. And when they told me that to my face at an event, I was just like, oh my God, I would have creamed all over the fucking movie screen. Like, for a horror, for a horror nerd, for a film score nerd, for a budding film composer at the time, I was just like, oh my God, that would have been, I almost want to find money to pay you guys to do that just to hear what you would do. Because you can lay it into the film, you know, if you have an isolated track, that would be amazing.
And we live in this era where people are releasing scores. What was it? Gosh, I saw something where I think it was John Carpenter had worked on a movie. Oh, I can't remember what it was, because I know he recently did the Firestarter remake and all that. But there was some score, and for whatever reason, it's totally skipping my mind right now. If somebody in the chat wants to look it up and let me know. But there's a movie that he scored and they ended up not going with his score. And I think he's releasing it in 2026. So it'll just be, you know, what John wrote for this movie kind of thing. So like, we live in this era now where not only are we getting like legacy actors come back to play their characters again, but, you know, maybe those guys could, you know, put a little something together, and that would be really cool and it would be cool to hear in that movie, and it would give the movie a totally different feel and maybe a little more of a cohesive feel as well. And I will Death of a Unicorn is what Linda said. So yeah, John Carpenter did a score for Death of a Unicorn that was not used. And anything that he writes, like, I'm sure you dig his music, like his Lost Themes records are fucking incredible. It is, you know, I think he's one of the greatest things about John Carpenter, and I know this is a Nightmare on Elm Street, but we got to talk about Halloween at least a couple times. His ability to control the visuals and audio is something that very few directors have ever brought forth. So it's a very unique kind of vision, a complete vision, a control of the audience in that sense, which is really special.
And it's difficult for a lot of directors to even know how to speak musical language. I think you always know when a director can, because it seems very palpable on the screen when you're watching a film. Like George Lucas clearly can speak music to some degree to John, whether it's because they worked together so many times or what, but like their visuals and, you know, sonic experience mesh in a way that it feels completely like it was almost created at the same time. And also, real quick, I'm a fan of John. One of the greatest compliments I ever got in my life was when I was writing the score for the Halloween 2 commercial where I played Michael Myers. When I turned in the track to the producer, Anthony Massey, and the director, Matt Russell, I always get nervous whenever I send any music to any director. If too much time passes, I'm like, oh God, that means I hated it. Oh fuck, they're gonna want me to
like sending a text. I didn't get a text back.
What did I do? What did I do? Yeah. So they took their time getting back to me on that one. And I remember one of the best comments I've ever received was from Matt, the director. He wrote and he said, in regards to the end titles, he said, this actually sounds just like one of John's lost themes. Not one that he's written, but like something that he wrote that we are just now hearing for the first time. And when he said that, I almost fainted and cried. It was like I mean, like, for someone that worships John's work, it was like, okay, I should probably just stop now because it might not ever get any better than that. So
that's the validation. I mean, when you're a creative person, you know, I think creative people look for validation maybe even more so than anyone else, and it feels really good to get that kind of, you know, validation from the director, and that that he felt that those things were, you know, right in line with each other. Now, let's see here. We got Mark from Tales from the Shelf jumping in. What's happening, Mark? How are you doing? We are, man, 2 hours. It's 2 hours and 5 minutes in. What, you've probably been on the stream here with me for about an hour 45-ish, Lito. So it's been a pretty in-depth conversation. So, Mark, a lot of really good stuff here. And you know what? For once, I don't think I've done a majority of the talking. So if you come on back through the stream, it's going to be a very unique Davey Deathray channel experience. The last thing I'll say about Freddy versus Jason, I think Ken is a little bit too big for Jason, but I get why they made that decision, because Robert and Kane are a little too close in height. Guys, when people say that Kane is 6 feet tall, it's like, well, maybe if he puts on 2-inch boots, maybe if he puts on 2. And like, I met him recently, and obviously he's older now. He's probably shrunk a little bit, but he was never that huge. However, you could shoot the movie in a creative way and make it all work. I met Ken this last summer. He is one of the nicest guys I've ever met. So I felt so bad having that thought in my head. I feel guilty having that thought of like, oh man, I would have loved to have seen Kane. I think a lot of fans would have, and it's not a slight against Ken or anything like that, but he is a giant mountain of a man. But man, he was so friendly. It was amazing. Yeah. And and Kane was not nearly as friendly. So now I'm gonna just warm up to Ken a little bit more. Kane made it a little weird, guys. Someday I'll tell that whole story. Yeah, it was kind of strange.
You guys, everyone's making me blush in the chat. Thank you guys. I love all of you back. And you are all amazing. And that's part of the reason why I keep coming back to this channel when I can. I feel bad that I missed so many events, but like I watched your Friday the 13th Angry Orchard thing one day when I was like cleaning the house. I just had it on in the kitchen and I'm like scrubbing the kitchen counters and I'm like, yeah, fuck those guys, dude. You're absolutely fucking right.
Yeah, I try not to, it's not a doom tube channel what I do here. Yeah, I try to show everything as much love as possible, but and Friday the 13th isn't even like it's like my second favorite out of the big three, but man, it just hurts so bad to me. I'm just like, this just hurts. I feel bad for real diehard fans. And especially because there's some real diehard fans that are out there making some really great fan films and listening to the fans and understanding it. And just some of these guys need to have just a voice. Yeah. Greg Nicotero, I love what you do. Just stay away from masks, please. You're 0 for 2, dude. Michael, that was terrible, whatever that was in H2O. And then this Jason mask is not it. Yeah, and we saw. Did you see Silent Night, Deadly Night, Lito, the new one?
I haven't seen the new one yet. I was supposed to go last Friday night, but I was so sick that I texted Anthony. I said I wish I could come because I was sitting right next to him and his guy, but I was like, I can barely talk, I can barely breathe. I'm not going to make it out. I'm so sorry, but I plan on going tomorrow.
Excellent. Yeah, so that showed me too. I was like, man, I know they had a quick shoot for Sweet Revenge, but Mike P. Nelson is capable of, I know he was capable of putting something even better together for Jason, if they had provided a little more time. And that's what I saw from that. He's got a pretty good style going. He's got this, to me, it's sort of like Tarantino meets Rob Zombie kind of feel is what he kind of achieves there in his own way. Like it's a really cool stylization. And that's all I'll say. I hope you enjoy the movie. I enjoyed it quite a bit. And it was a lot of fun. I'm
excited. Yeah. You guys stop. Everybody stop.
Well, I think what it is I don't know if are you watching the YouTube side of things, Lito? Because I just closed that poll.
No.
How cool is Lito is the poll. 72% of 22 people said he's the coolest. What a dude. 14% said I want more of Lito on the channel. And the other 14% said I just showed up. What did I miss?
Well, you can always go back. Don't worry.
Yeah. Well, and
you guys are too nice. Stop.
I guess, we'll just have to bring you back on and tackle another franchise next time around. What do you guys say in the chat? Let us know in the chat. Yeah, I love seeing all the love for you. This is great. It's I do this stuff solo enough that it's really nice to to have I love having guests on and you're making my side of things really easy tonight, Lito. So thank you very much.
I'm
man.
glad.
Really appreciate you.
I thank you for doing this. This is fun. And I have to ask then, since you've revisited them recently, what is your definitive at this point in your life ranking?
Oh, I'm working on a video about that.
Okay. Don't spoil it. Don't spoil it.
I don't want to give it away too much, but I'll say this. If you guys watch my ranking from 2024, I did a ranking, I think it was spring of 2024.
Okay.
There's a lot of movement from that ranking. So revisit that one. Like, if you haven't seen it, guys, check out that video on the channel. Let me know in the comments what your ranking is. But, you know, I recently redid the Halloween ranking. There was a little bit of movement there. But, man, A Nightmare on Elm Street, there's a whole bunch of stuff that's shifted around. So
yeah, that's
I'm really excited. Yeah, I'm excited to talk about it and share that. And it'll probably be one of those long form videos where I talk for like 40 minutes about these movies. And I'll tell you, even the movies I don't like, I'll still tell you what I like about them, which seemed to be one of the things people really appreciated about the Halloween ranking. I didn't just shit all over the ones in the bottom. I did say some nice things about them.
well, that's another thing. I wanted to hit two things real quick before we go. And Stephanie said, Stephanie wants me to do the Joker voice again. So there you go. One of the things that I loved about the Nightmare on Elm Street films, and you mentioned earlier, Stephen Hopkins, you talked about his background as an art designer, like Tim Burton. Mm-hmm. That's something that I loved about each of the films. As they went along, you could almost feel what each director's background was and where their strength lied, because no matter what anybody says about Part 5, it's slow. I think it's poorly lit in a lot of scenes. I think there's a lot of other, I won't bash on it too hard. One of the things that I love about it is the art design is stunning. Like when you look at the nun, the convent hospital / whatever it is, that thing is beautiful. When you look at the ending, the MC Escher-esque sex and everything about that is just like, holy shit, Stephen Hopkins brought that game. Like, he really brought that game. And it's just like Rennie's strength was lighting and camera work and editing. He brought that game. You could feel that game, you know? So like, I feel like every single film has something that defines it very clearly that comes from the background of the director, except for maybe Part 2. Which is just, for me, just feels very workmanlike, and like, we filmed the scene, okay, now we film the next scene. Like, I don't feel a real sense of style from Part 2. It feels very much paint by numbers, in my opinion. Yeah, I still enjoy it, and I'm not begrudging anyone that loves it, but it just doesn't have the same kind of definitive touch, I think, that the later ones did. And then the other thing is, I probably said this to you, but I don't know if I said it in a video. I always refer to the slasher icons of the 80s in a way that would definitely make the people at the public school say, I told you he's a fucking heathen. But I always look at it as Michael, Jason, and Freddy are literally the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit of horror. They really are. And that's why I call them the Holy Trinity, because when you look at it, Michael set the path. Jason is the son of Pamela. And when you think of Jason, you think of him being a son. And then Freddy's this ethereal ghost type thing that pervades the entire horror atmosphere. They literally are. It's like, it's kind of fucked up.
Well, and not only that, but Jason was even, you know, that was all born from Halloween, you know. Sean S. Cunningham was just like, I want to do that. Just like put it in the woods, you know, let's take it up just that little bit. So yeah, that's pretty awesome. I like that. What do you guys think about that in the chat? The unholy trinity of Michael, Jason, and Freddy. Yeah, that's I like that. We're gonna have to bring you back on, man. I don't know, you know, maybe because I know Scream 7 is coming up, so maybe we got to bring you on to talk about some Scream. You know, I don't know.
So excited.
You know, I don't know if you're an Evil Dead guy. I'm a massive Evil Dead guy, and we've got a new Evil Dead coming out this year that I'm very happy to know is not going to be part of the acquisition, the Warner Brothers acquisition that's actually going to hit the theater. But yeah, this has been great. I think, I mean, you know, your level of like, it's not just the passion, it's the knowledge, it's the fact that you've like lived in this world as a fan, and you also live in this world as you know, an artist in so many different ways. So you know, to have you here and share some time with me on the channel, like you know, you are an incredible asset to you know, the people you work for and work with, and the community of just like all of us fans here. So you're welcome anytime to come back on the channel. I know everybody here loves you and loves what you do, and they're probably just relieved to not have to listen to my skanky ass talk for 2 hours straight. So I appreciate you.
I sincerely doubt that's the case. And also, before I go, I have one more thing. If people don't know, I scored 2 Nightmare on Elm Street fan films. One is called The Confession of Fred Krueger. It was written and directed by Nathan Thomas Milliner, who is the guy that actually did the cover art for our book. He created the cover art based on a concept drawing that I sent him. And Nathan is a pretty good friend. And so when he was making this film, they were going to show it at Horror Hound Indianapolis 2015, which they did, but we were going to send a copy to Wes through my back channels. And Wes literally died before I could finish scoring the film. But the score to that film is loaded with tributes to the first film score. And then I did another fan film called Don't Fall Asleep that takes place between Nightmare 1 and Nightmare 3. And it's all about what happens to Nancy in that timeline. And I loaded that score with references to not just the different scores from the different films, but the styles of the different composers. I quote Dream Warriors in certain spots. Like, if you're a huge fan of the Nightmare films and you know the music to some degree, go watch those films, and you're going to hear stuff and be like, wow, like, I recognize that from here. And because again, that's just how I do things. Like, I'm that big of a nerd. In fact, at one point I was writing a sequence where the tempo had to accelerate. And I told Nathan, I said, this is how nerdy I am. I literally made the tempo markings 84, which is the year the first film released, 85, 87, 88, 89, 91, 94, and 103. Because that literally is the years that the films came out, 103 being 2003, Freddy versus Jason. And he was just like, are you serious? And I was like, I'm that serious. And at one point in the score, I literally spell out the name Fred by using the notes F, D, F, I can't remember the notes, but anyway, it literally spells out musically Fred.
Fuck yeah. The nerdiest of the nerd. That's I feel, you know, I'm a total nerd about the stuff I love. I'm not ashamed of that shit. That's you know, that's what makes us what we are. And so guys, what I'll do is I'll find those films. We'll share the links over on the Discord. So if you're not signed up to the Discord, go over and join us there. And what I'll do, I have Lito's links in the description right now, so you can go to his official page. You can see everything that he's working on currently. There's a whole bunch of really great stuff to check out there. You know, the last time when Lito was on Late Night with the Davey Before Dark, we discussed a lot of that as well. So if you want more Lito, you can go watch that live as well. And then what I'll do is if you want more Lito, we'll have members only fans is what I'm calling it.
$5.
Yeah, there we go. But what I'll do is, for anybody that's watching this on the replay, I will include those links in the description for the fan films that Lito has scored, so you guys can check those out. And yeah, I'll just go ahead and let you say, just before we head out, what you're doing on Friday. Let the people know one more time, and then we'll go ahead and sign off.
Yeah, go over to Keelan's channel and check out Friday night. We're going to do a watch along of All Through the House. It should be pretty interesting because it's his first time watching on Friday. And like I said, there are a couple of sections in the film that are very dialogue plot heavy. So I don't know how I'm going to have to talk to him beforehand and say, if I do this, we need to stop because you need to know what's happening. Like, the visuals will not be enough. So come check it out and see what happens. Yeah,
I will jump there in the chat and do my best not to distract too much. Before we head out, I just want to thank everybody that's thrown some super chats out there. Erica became a channel member. Emoji Matt threw out a $4.99 for his welcome to prime time, bitch. And then we got Keelan from Kill the Credits dropping a $1.99, dropping a $9.99. He did another $9.99. This is what happens when people get tipsy on their birthdays, is they come in here and throw some cash around. So I fully support that kind of activity. Erica dropped a $2 to threaten you guys to hit the like button. I like that. And then another $2 to put in her word for Jamie Bowers Campbell to play Freddy, our Vecna from Stranger Things. All right, guys, that's been, holy cow, 2 hours, 20 minutes of a nightmare on Elm Street talk. Thank you so much to everybody that hung out with us. Shout out to the Patreon members, the YouTube channel members, and of course, our lovely group of Death Squad mods. You guys have been awesome. I will be back later on this week to do some more of the Terrifier 3 reading here. So we're going to get back into that, guys. We're almost halfway through that book. And then I'm sure you'll see me with some other kind of malarkey here in the near future as well. So, yeah, guys, that is going to wrap it up for us here. You guys have all been beautiful and amazing. We love you so much. Thank you for being so incredibly gracious and kind to our guest. And Lito, thank you so very much for spending some time with us and nerding the fuck out, man. It's been a blast.
My pleasure. Anytime.
All right, guys. Well, until next time, he's been Lito Velasco, and I've been and will continue being Davey Deathray. Take care.